Okay, I'm going to call to order this regular City Commission meeting of Monday, April 6th. All please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. As always, we begin by acknowledging the land on which we gather is the territory of the Ottawa and Chippewa peoples who have stewarded this land through the generations. Thank you for your strength and resilience in protecting this land and inspiring us to uphold our responsibilities to do the same. And with that, we'll go ahead and start with roll call. Sarah, please.
Commissioner Hunt?
Here.
Commissioner Shaw?
Here.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Here.
Commissioner Anderson?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Ness? Here. Commissioner Bomer?
Here.
Mayor?
Here. All right, we'll continue with announcements from the city manager, please.
I actually don't have any.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Any from you, Sarah? I know. We
Yeah, I
rushed
went
you.
through that real quick. Sorry,
You
Sarah.
guys got to coordinate better.
Not ready. Just a few meetings this week. There will be a ad hoc, I'm doing this on the fly, interview committee for the Board of Zoning and Appeals tomorrow at noon, April 7th at the second floor conference room. The Parks and Rec Commission will be having a special meeting April 7th, Tuesday at 6 p.m. in the training room. And the Planning Commission is having their regular meeting at 6 p.m. also on Tuesday here in the chambers. And there's another ad hoc interview committee for the human rights on April 8th, and that one's also at noon in the conference room. And that's what I have so far. So thank you.
Great. Okay, well then with that, we'll go ahead and let you keep going with the consent calendar, please.
Sounds good. The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission, staff, or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed therefrom and placed elsewhere on the agenda for individual consideration by the commission, and such requests will be automatically respected. If an item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted in parentheses on the agenda is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. 1, consideration approving the minutes of the March 2nd, March 9th, and March 23rd, 2026 meetings of the City Commission. Approval recommended. 2, consideration of adopting a resolution recognizing Downtown Traverse City Association, DTCA, as a nonprofit organization within the city, which will allow it to apply for a State of Michigan raffle license. Adoption recommended. 3, consideration of authorizing issuance of a new redevelopment district liquor license with Class C privileges with Sunday AM PM sales and additional bar permits to the City Opera House Heritage Association, Inc., located at 106 East Front Street, and authorizing the city clerk to issue the registration. Adoption and approval recommended. 4, consideration of authorizing a confirming purchase order for diesel fuel for city operational use. Approval recommended. 5, consideration of authorizing an agreement for roof replacement at City Opera House. Approval recommended. 6, consideration of approving a budget amendment for the contract for the painting of long lines in fiscal year 2025-2026. Approval recommended. 7, consideration of introducing an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which would rezone the 523, 525, and 551 Munson Avenue from C2A Neighborhood Center conditionally zoned to C2 Neighborhood Center as recommended by the Planning Commission. Introduction and schedule for possible enactment on April 20th, 2026 recommended. Number 8, consideration of introducing an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinance, which would update parking meter operations, clarify payment options, and revise related civil fine provisions in consideration of approving the parking rate ceiling fee for parking permit, surface permit. Introduction and schedule for possible enactment on April 20th, 2026 recommended. 9, consideration of the enactment of an amendment to the development regulations for the Grand Traverse Commons to allow for additional sheds at the community garden as recommended by the Grand Traverse Commons Joint Planning Commission. Enactment recommended. 10, consideration of the enactment of the amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which amends the composition of the Parks and Recreation Commission. Enactment recommended. 11, consideration of enactment of an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which would establish a right-of-way ordinance. Enactment recommended. 12, consideration of the enactment of an amendment to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which amends the parking-related enforcement of right-of-way. Enactment recommended. 13, consideration of accepting a public utility easement for public water main purposes. Acceptance recommended. 14, consideration of adopting a resolution approving submission of Water Resources Division State High Water Infrastructure Grant for Coastal Resiliency and Shoreline Stabilization Plan application. Approval recommended. 15, consideration of adopting a resolution to terminate participation in MERS Healthcare Savings Program for IAFF members and transition to IAFF MERP plan. Approval recommended.
Okay, does any commissioner want anything pulled? Go ahead, Heather.
7.
7. Ken?
2 and 12, please.
Okay. Jackie and then Mitch.
14, please.
Okay. Mitch?
4, and just a slight correction
Mm-hmm.
on, where is it? On 10,
Okay.
in the memo, it says effective 8 days after, but further down, it does list the dates as the originally scheduled March 16th, so can that get corrected?
Correct. Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Great. Is that everybody? Okay. Anybody from the public would like to pull any item other than 7, 2, 12, 14, or 4? Seeing none, I'll bring it back for a motion.
I'll make a motion to accept the consent calendar as amended.
Thank you.
Support.
Okay, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we'll start with item number 7, which is the Munson rezone. And Heather, you had this pulled?
Yes, so it looks like the deed restriction that may take place, so I'm going to skip over that. So my problem with the C2 designation in this location is that C1 does not allow laundry and dry cleaning services, and C2 does. And since this location is about a block from East Bay, where we get our drinking water, I think that we might want to think about how we treat our dry cleaning services here in Traverse City. Right now, there is proposed legislation in Michigan to force dry cleaners to phase out their perchloroethylene by 2032. So why don't we do this now? Minneapolis did it. That was the first state that did it, or the first city. They did it in 2018. They didn't ban dry cleaners entirely. They just forced them or
Required.
ordinanced them to switch to alternative technologies. We could also just amend or ask that the Planning Commission amend C2 to prohibit these they call them, these perchloroethylenes in sensitive locations. This has been a recommendation from the EPA for decades. So I'm looking for support from the commission to ask the Planning Commission to please take a look at their C2 and make some changes to that, to the dry cleaner use, and that would actually filter up through all higher zoning throughout the city.
I appreciate that. And Lauren, I would ask that if we were to vote on this to continue as it was, if we passed something like that, let's say in 6 months, if there's no building there that has a dry cleaner, would that rule then apply if anything tried to go into this property?
Sure, couple things. I would like to take a look at whether there are regulations already in Michigan that cover that, and whether, if the state regulates it, whether that allows more stringent regulations to be enacted by a local municipality. Sometimes it's totally regulated by the state, and the city can't make regulations like that. I just don't know if that's the case. I'd like to look. But as long as the use has not been established, it would then be subject to the current zoning at the time that it was being established. So if there were something different established in 6 months, then it would be subject to that regulation. Does that make sense?
As long as they
Yeah.
didn't have shovels in the ground.
Mhm.
Right. Great.
Is that helpful? And I agree with you, Heather, about exploring that and doing that. I know this particular zoning, I remember a couple years ago, they had done a lot of work with the neighborhood and such to try and incorporate, oh gosh, why did I just forget? Third Coast, is that right? there's so many coast businesses here. Third Coast into the plans in the future and the neighborhoods to create something that was accommodating and no dry cleaner, but also, as we all know, we don't want to just let things go and not think about it and hope for the best. So I appreciate that being brought up in this lens here.
Well, I appreciate the owner of that property and all he's been, how he's been working with the neighborhood. He's gone beyond and above. Hopefully that deed restriction goes through. But anything could happen,
Yep.
you know, and his heirs could decide they just want to sell it, and then who knows what
Absolutely.
we can do.
So that's great. So I appreciate that. So knowing that we can do this and that there's no shovels in the ground and that's not the plan right now, do we have a motion for this right now to continue it, or? Thank you for checking that out, Lawrence. Bring that back to us.
Could we make a motion to refer it to the Planning Commission for action? Is that appropriate this time or not?
I would
Is that
hesitate to do it
premature?
because of the time limit on this for it having already been approved, that if we take too long and send it back, does that affect the process here for what they're in the middle of trying to do?
Well, I don't,
The-
what the
they're asking
planning
if we can- yeah.
commission is doing? I mean, I think that you can either hold on it now or refer it, or if you moved it forward now, then you could still change it in the future so long as the use has not been established at that time.
Well, I defer to Heather, Commissioner Shaw.
I wasn't thinking of wrapping it up into this recommendation. I was more like,
Yeah.
I'm looking for support from the
Yes.
city commission to recommend that the planning commission take this up.
The-
And I'm not sure how that,
The dry cleaning part,
The
correct?
dry
Yeah, not
cleaning
this
part.
particular,
Yes.
right,
Okay.
yes. So, noted, so did we want to go ahead with this then? Okay, it looks like Lance is
I'll make a
looking.
motion. Let me just make sure I have the right one.
Yeah.
All right. Get to it.
At the top.
Over here?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I move that the amendments to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, which would rezone 523, 525, and 551 Munson Avenue from C2A Neighborhood Center conditionally zoned to C2 Neighborhood Center as recommended by the Planning Commission be introduced and scheduled for possible enactment on April 20, 2026.
Support.
Thank you, Ken, and thank you, Lance. Any further discussion with the notes that we've already made to send to staff? Go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, and I made the motion just because I do also believe that we should have the Planning Commission look at the dry cleaning as an issue in the future. But we've had, all of us have had emails back and forth, I think, in the last couple days with the owner and some of the concerned neighbors there. So it's really good to see when somebody wants to do something that they've gone out on their own. We didn't even have to ask them, but they went out on their own and they met with all of the neighbors, and they have neighbor support around it. So, yeah, that's why I'm supporting this.
Great. Laura, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay, sorry, something moved over there. Any other comments on this? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that. Okay, now on to item number 2. I readjust my computer. And this is the DTCA license. Was this you as well, Heather?
No,
Oh,
it was
sorry, it
me.
was Ken, sorry.
No, I'll speak to this now because this, I don't think anybody else would have pulled this off. This isn't very controversial, but I wanted to pull this specifically because I believe that this pursuit by the DTCA is a good thing and something that I wanted to publicly support. I've been very critical of the DDA's projects and how I feel about their contribution in the community. And I wanted to specifically highlight this item because my feelings about the DTCA and the businesses downtown should never be confused with my scrutiny of the DDA and their projects. So with an uncertain future for TIF 97, I think that this is a very important measure to strongly support. I hope that someone will ask me to buy a raffle ticket when it's time. If no one has any further questions, I would be happy to make this motion.
Go right ahead.
I move that the City Commission of the City of Traverse City formally recognize the
Oh,
downtown.
read the one at the top, sorry, the very top of the item.
So page 1 of that bundle, the motion
That
that's
was a
on my cover memo.
recommendation for one, though.
Yeah, the local governing body resolution.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
know there's
move
a bunch
that
in there.
the local governing body resolution for charitable gaming licenses issued by the Michigan Lottery to recognize Downtown Traverse City Association, DTCA, as a local nonprofit organization be adopted.
Second that.
Thank you, Commissioner Funk and Commissioner Shaw. Any further comments on this? All right, any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for that. Thank you for that, Commissioner Funk. All right, then our next one is 12, which is the code ordinances for the parking right-of-way. And this was, sorry, I'm confused. Enough people pulled. It was Ken again, correct?
Mhm,
Yes.
yeah.
Did on that.
I will read it. I don't agree with this and I don't support it. And we currently have adequate enforcement mechanisms in place to address this. I'm not worried about bothering PD with going out into the neighborhoods for pesky parking tickets. I don't want parking enforcement traveling around the city patrolling for parking ticket opportunities. I feel that this would potentially, could or would happen, and it could be viewed as potentially an unnecessary risk. If this is happening at a significant enough level that needs immediate attention by parking, to immediately enforce rather than a tire getting marked and 48 hours later there's a follow-up visit. I feel like this is a pretext or a prelude to further encroachment of metered parkings into residential neighborhoods. The proposed language is a little bit different than what was discussed when this was previously brought up. We were presented with the problem of job material waste trailers, dumpsters, and boats in alleys as a problem. This ordinance language speaks to parking or displaying in right-of-ways for the purpose of for sale signs on their vehicles, and they will be in violation of this ordinance. So I felt like this is a little unclear. And when you look at, it is the third page of this agenda item, right at the top, and they're highlighted in red. It says, prohibited parking. Unless otherwise allowed by the city manager, no person shall park or place a vehicle, boat, or other object in any city parking lot, on a city street, or public right-of-way for the principal purpose of displaying such vehicle, boat, camper, mobile home, or object for sale, for storage, or for advertising purposes. So some of these job site trailers have the name of the company on the side of it. That could be misconstrued as advertising. If I put a for sale sign in the back window of my truck and I park it on the street, I'm technically in violation of this. I would, as I read it, and I don't know that I necessarily want to leave it up for interpretation by a city employee who could then get some verbal backlash from the community member who owns that vehicle. They're like, what are you giving me a ticket for? Well, you got a for sale sign. You're in violation of this ordinance. So I'm not a fan of this, and I don't support it. And I wanted to voice my concern with it, and that's why I wanted this removed.
Thank you, Ken. And I know that Benjamin wanted to say some things to this.
Yes, I just wanted to make sure it's clear that the language in this ordinance prohibits what you said for the principal purpose of selling or for principal purpose for displaying it for sale, storage, or advertising purposes, the principal purpose.
I'm going to get a lot more views of my for sale truck parked downtown than I am in front of my house in the neighborhood. It's kind of an interpretation thing, and I don't know that I like leaving it as an open loophole for interpretation and subject to the interpretation of an employee that might get some backlash from it. I think that we have a mechanism in place right now. Tire gets marked. 48 hours later, they check it, and if the vehicle's still there, it can then be ticketed by parking enforcement. This was promoted as we're going to relieve the burden of PD by going into the neighborhoods and being able to ticket them right away, because PD can't ticket them right away. I say leave this alone. I don't necessarily agree with this.
Go ahead, Lance.
Yeah, question. So let's just say theoretically, right, where I have, a sign for sale in my Subaru, and I do get a ticket because it's displayed for a long time in a location. But my principal purpose is really just because I park on the street. But that was misconstrued maybe by somebody, and I did receive a ticket. How do I go about fighting that ticket since it's a civil matter and this isn't up really for the courts, how does that work as a citizen?
Nicole Van Ness is approaching, who is, of course, in charge of parking. And if you can answer that question, and Nicole, if you have any other context that might be helpful for Commissioner Funk's concerns for the full commission, that'd be great too.
Thank you.
Thank
Nicole
you.
Vaness, Parking Mobility Director. So to answer the question as far as how to go about appealing a civil violation, that would start with the office, and that's a level 1 appeal where all of the photos and evidence as it relates to the citation is reviewed. At that point, there is the option of the 86th District Court, who will do an informal hearing if the information provided supports the citation one way or the other. Our office will typically try to do the best that we can to avoid anybody going to the 86th District Court. We don't want to waste the court's times. So we take into consideration all information and evidence that's provided for the citations. As far as for sale, I can honestly say in the 14 years that I've been here, I don't think we've issued one citation for sale. I think that when this ordinance was brought forward, and it was brought forward in conjunction with the right-of-way ordinance provided by city engineering. And the purpose is right now we have a lot of dumpsters, waste trailers tied to projects where they're just storing them on the street. So right now we don't have a mechanism. We have called businesses to try to get them to pick up the trailers, but then that just becomes a lot of back and forth and a lot of administrative time to make those calls. So it's really tied to that ordinance as it relates to engineering and less to the sale of vehicles or advertising.
I have a follow-up question.
Go ahead, Lance.
You said dumpsters or trailers, but I'm reading, as I read this, the addition is not dumpsters or trailers. It looks to be campers and mobile homes. And maybe
We do also get phone calls from residents that have neighbors who have their pop-ups extended by the camper. They've got extension cords coming, generators running. So again, those ones we're unable to address. So at this point, with this being tied to the right-of-way ordinance, campers and trailers also being in the right-of-way, we did add those so we didn't have to come back for a second amendment. But yes, you are correct. It does include boats and campers and would allow us to take action on those complaints as well. We're not stalking the neighborhoods. We're not out looking for citations. Most of the time when we address complaints, it's citizen-driven.
We have other questions? Go
I have
ahead.
a question for Commissioner Funk. Is your primary concern the sale, the for sale and the example of being your truck, or is your concern the entire ordinance?
I think we're trying to fix something that doesn't need fixing, and I like it. I kind of like to leave it the way it was. I understand that there were some issues with people don't get the permit to have these dumpsters or any of these things in the street, because if you get the permit, then you are allowed to do this, correct?
Correct.
So they're not getting the permit, and parking enforcement can only mark their tires, and then they have to wait 48 hours before they can then go and issue a citation. Whereas our police department has the ability to go and cite them immediately. We are going to give parking enforcement the same abilities as our law enforcement to issue citations without waiting. We have a mechanism. Our law enforcement can do this if they're there for 48 hours or longer. I like leaving it at that rather than giving this increased ability to our parking enforcement when I don't necessarily want them in the neighborhoods. It's just my thoughts and feelings as far as today they're driving around in neighborhoods looking for, I know you said they're not stalking them. I agree with that. You're probably not. But I don't want to create the opportunity for it to become an issue, what people are looking at. Like, man, parking enforcement was over here and they wrote a ticket on this. I don't believe that you are aggressively running around trying to generate revenue, but you're really good at it.
Well, are they though? I mean, if
They're
you look at
really
their
good.
numbers,
They're really good.
and the parking spots we're losing. The one thing I would ask, I had two questions about this. Looking at what's in the packet, almost all the fines that could be associated with this, with the exception of I think like 3, maybe 4, is $15. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
And then the duration, having lived in several places throughout town and seen a lot of dumpsters without permits parked, overnight parking all winter long, because to get overnight parking you have to for a car that's been there for several days, you have to call after 11 p.m. to report it, and other such things. I guess I don't know that I feel like parking enforcement is already patrolling and looking for ticketing, nor do I think that we have the staff that goes all over, a lot of staff. And so I hear what you're saying, Commissioner Funk, but I guess what I'm looking at is this would take some of the pressure off of parking, but in the margin of error is $15. And so that's where I feel, I don't necessarily know that we'd go patrolling for $15, nor do I
people that can
wonder if that's a huge error if it does accidentally land on it versus somebody
The people
abusing.
that, I mean, I don't think $15 is a big deal to me, but the people that typically $15 might be an issue for, I think are more likely to be someone who would have to deal with this situation. Disabled vehicle, they're already strapped for cash. Vehicle sits there for a period of time while they're waiting and making arrangements to get it moved. They don't want to go, they don't have the knowledge to go pull a permit, and the vehicle sat there for a period of time because it's complained, but it's been reported.
Go ahead, Lance, but then I had a question
Yeah,
for.
I guess my question, maybe proposal would be, can we better define the two words principal purpose in the actual ordinance itself? Because I don't want to, as you said, Commissioner Funk, stuff happens and then they get a ticket and now they have to go to court to fight it, but principal purpose is really not defined within the document or the ordinance, or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe our legal counsel can advise to that. And so now it's my word against your word without a definition of what principal purpose actually means. And so I don't know. I'd like to see that maybe more clearly defined if we were going to pass this. Yeah, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of it that way, but until now.
Well, the whole thing with the for sale was the for sale sign potentiality of, like, I'm selling my vehicle and I have a for sale sign. It's left up to interpretation. It's up to that person's decision on whether or not they may want to cite them for it or not. And I don't think that's a great thing. Like, that's the thing. Let's take the subjectivity out of it and make it very clear. So I don't like it as it is. I think something cleaner could be better. But I understand that there was a need to tie this in with the right-of-way ordinance. I've seen the job site trailers on streets with a mound of snow packed around the side of it because we had weather and that trailer hadn't gotten removed yet. So I know there's some issues and challenges with this. I don't feel good enough about this to move it forward.
When you're coming back, what you're coming back to a lot in this example is the for sale, and Nicole has now said that she hasn't in 15 years experienced a for sale complaint. If that was just stricken for everybody's clarification, since that seems to be where the muddiness is that something that would make that clear for Lance and for yourself? Or I'm not trying to get you to inherently say yes to something that you would object to if that's where you're at, but that's what we keep coming back to in this conversation. So is that really necessary to have in the ordinance as a whole?
I guess I don't really understand what you were.
Well,
What are you trying to clarify?
you kind of, if we were talking about this, nobody's saying that we don't think that campers should just be living on our street, or that, not permitted vehicles or boats, which I've seen too. But what you're coming back to is the for sale, and I get it. It's kind of obscure. What if you're just parked on the street and you get a ticket for the for sale and not being appropriate use? Lance was asking about the clarification of what we're all agreeing that phrase means. If we just struck the object for sale, and that's fine. Like, it's a car that would have been left there for long and violates other things if it's there, but that seems to be the sticking point in the language. If we took that language out, does that then make that a little more more palatable for really the intent, which the intention is if somebody's just parking their boat out for a couple days, or a camper, or a dump site that isn't approved, that would still be covered by all of this then. We would just take out that kind of subjective, what I'm using, I don't know, I'm tired tonight, sorry.
No, it's
You know what I'm going for, language. Go ahead, Mitch.
Yes, I
you
don't
can
know if
think on
this
that.
is a question for Nicole or Lauren or just the ether. But do we have language from other communities or from case law that more clearly defines how principal use is defined.
I was going to say, you know, the words principal purpose, I don't know that they're defined in the ordinance. It's probably one of those issues like the reasonable person standard, where you would likely find guidance within the cases if it were to come to that. And that's what the magistrate would then base that decision on in a hearing situation. And it would be up to that person to then weigh and balance, whether there was evidence to show that the principal use or the principal reason that it was there was, in violation of the ordinance. So,
Okay. Well, that tells me that we don't need to explicitly outline everything, especially since we can't imagine every possible scenario. I think that there will be both some flexibility in the person writing the ticket, especially if they can contact the person at the house, if it is in front of a house or a business. That's the first person I would try to talk to if I was enforcement and had seen or had reported a car or boat or other vehicle. for an
Let's not
exemplary
start
time.
prescribing method to people who have a job assignment that we're not aware of what their rules are.
Exactly.
Go ahead, Heather. Yep.
Yeah, if we're going to strike the for sale part, I think we have to strike the advertising purposes as well. So basically, you're down to storage. You
Yep.
can't, for the principal purpose of display, of storing your vehicle or whatever
Principal person displaying
Yeah.
the vehicle
on the street,
for
that's
storage.
the only thing. I don't know.
And
I
sorry,
don't
Nicole
see
sat
any
down.
difference really between advertising, or the kind of trouble you could run into from parking your truck with a big sign on it and putting a for sale sign on your
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that does satisfy Commissioner Funk. Your other concern about, my trailers and my everything has advertising on it. And
Yeah, because I was going to ask Nicole, the essence of why this was brought forward, is if I'm remembering correctly from the presentation we had initially, was that this was just to help with basically people abusing the parking by doing campers, boats, long-term storage of a car. If there's an issue of abandonment because of a vehicle that's not working, that can be called in, and there's exceptions given to that. So we're really just talking about people who are essentially using public roads for storage. And so if these two were stricken from it, that doesn't still change the real motivation for really what this was for enforcement of abuse, basically, correct?
That actually further defines the purpose, yep, to make it
Okay.
for storage.
So,
And there's a little thing with this too. Those are some of like the issues that I have with how it's written and how some things there could be a problem with how these are interpreted. But at the end of the day, you can get a permit and you can park this vehicle right on the street, no problem. But if you don't get the permit, we are actively seeking out a way to penalize you for that faster, instead of leaving the mechanism as it is. It seems like it's closing this 48-hour gap, which I don't really feel is that essential. I like to give these people the benefit of the doubt. You got 48 hours to get that thing out of there, whatever it is, once you've been warned by a tire mark.
if you see the tire mark.
Well, I don't know where they put them. They could be really small, they could be really big, but, they're gambling, and I like to give these people the benefit of the doubt. If it's about money, then I think that the way it's written is fine. But if it's about what's maybe in the best interest of these people a little bit more, I like to be flexible. I don't like it to be subjective with the advertising and with the for sale sign. So I didn't really like this, and I didn't really want to see it change from the way it was. It's a recommendation on a change, and that's fine. I don't agree with the recommendation of the change.
I can tell you the motivation is not money.
Yeah.
So it's whether or not you want more rapid enforcement. And you're saying you don't, and obviously that's the commission's prerogative. I just wanted to clarify that the reason this was brought forward was not to generate revenue.
I'm sure it was.
Go ahead,
So
Laura.
we don't have a motion yet
No, and, yeah.
on the table. So either I can make a motion and then we can vote
Yeah.
and move on.
Yeah, if you'd like to make a motion.
Okay.
My clarification for you, would you be making the motion for what is there, or would you say as amended?
I would
And
amend it.
strike the
I would-
sale and
yeah,
the advertising?
As amended to
Okay.
strike sale and advertising.
Is
Okay.
that good? Both, I'm looking at our clerk and our legal. Okay, head nod.
I move that the city commission adopt the proposed amendments to Part 4 Traffic Code Sections 48402, 48404, and 48806, as amended to strike the advertising and for sale, to update parking meter operations, clarify payment options, including mobile application payments.
Oh, I think you're, go up to the top one,
The top one.
the top of the,
That's all I got. Okay. Okay, got it.
okay.
'Cause I'll start all over. This one?
Yeah. I can't.
That amendments to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances, that's.
So it'd be
And
amendments,
that's in my cover memo.
okay, so it'd be amendments to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances,
that's what I
okay,
have.
to Part 4.
All right, that amendments to the Traverse City Code of Ordinances to Part 4 Traffic Code, Section 480.03A and Section 488.0628E, as amended to strike advertising and for sale, which will allow parking services to assist with enforcement be enacted with an effective date 8 days after publication.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Ness and Bomer, any further discussion on this? Okay, seeing none, any public comment on this?
I just want to point out the motion, that where it says an effective date 8 days after publication, that's for zoning amendments. Our charter requires it to be 10 days after today, so if you can just agree to that modification. Our apologies for
I agree to
that.
that modification.
Agreed.
Okay. So everybody's clear that it's a, voting on the amended, we're striking the, just to summarize, we're striking the for sale and the advertisement, and it is effective 10 days, not 8 days per the city charter. So any further discussion on this? Seeing none, any public comment on this? I'll bring it back, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Funk?
Nay.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Treadwell?
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Ness?
Yes.
Commissioner Bomer?
Yes.
Mayor?
Yes. Motion passes. We now have item 14. Jackie, that was pulled by you
Yes.
for the Eagle Grant?
And please understand that I'm highly supportive of both the project and the request for Eagle funds, but I had a couple of questions regarding connections. First off, I wondered what our intent is to take advantage of the Watershed Center's expertise and services, and both in-kind and sometimes even funding donations in support of the shoreline net stabilization project. And then I also wondered, will this have any impact on progress on our riparian buffer ordinance that's currently, I think, still somewhere in the Planning Commission process?
Hi,
Hi.
I'm Michelle Hunt. So Leslie and I worked on this together, so I'm, just in case she has to answer. But the Watershed Center is a partner on this grant, and which is really exciting because bids were due Friday for the request for qualifications for the shoreline stabilization project. And we received 11. So we're going to be going over those, and so we're actively down that road. And so this grant is to help us with that process so that we can find a consultant, work with the Watershed Center and staff, and accomplish this very big project in a phased approach.
Excellent, excellent. And then coordination with the riparian buffer ordinance, does that need to be paused relative to what may happen coming out of this project?
So we've taken the riparian buffer ordinance back to the design team one more time. It's undergoing legal review one more time. We've gotten more input from the Watershed Center. There are a couple of things that I think could benefit from input from this firm which is identified through the RFQ to help make that ordinance a little bit more refined. But the way it's written right now, those may come as either appendices or information not actually in the ordinance. So I think it can be helped with this process, but they're not necessarily tied. If that makes
They're not
sense.
codependent. All right, thank you both very much.
Do we have further questions, or I take a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
I move that the city commission authorize the submission of a $161,050 grant application to the Water Resources Division for a project addressing accelerated flooding, coastal erosion, and destabilized shoreline banks along East and West Grand Traverse Bays and the Boardman-Ottaway River corridor from Grand Traverse Bay upstream to the Union Street Dam, as more fully described in the Deputy Planning Director's communication, with the grant providing 80% of the total project cost and with the city committing a 20% local match in the amount of $32,258, including $5,258 in in-kind staff hours and $27,000 in cash, with actual expenses to be approved by the city commission at a future date.
Support.
Thank you, Commissioners Ness and Treadwell. Any further discussion on this? Go ahead.
I'd just like to say I think this is a great project. I really appreciate the partnership with the Watershed Center, and good luck.
And following up on that, yes, Lake Michigan is lower than it was several years ago, but it will come back. The Borden River has seen very high water over the past few days, and it's important that we are looking forward and making our shorelines more resilient.
Thank you. Any further comment?
Was it optional participation for the private residences to participate in this study?
Michelle or Leslie, can you respond to that question?
So are you talking about public outreach as a component of this project? You know, the Eagle didn't specify exact projects, or I don't think there's a requirement for public outreach and public engagement, but you know, working with the Watershed Center, we felt that that would be an important component to make sure that we're getting it right, but also that that the public is aware of what the outcome of this study is.
I'm also kind of wondering if, while they're studying these public beach areas, if if it is optional for like private residences that butt right up to those. Like we got a significant amount of private residence frontage on the shoreline. So will they be participating?
Yep. So the vulnerability analysis component includes both an analysis of vulnerabilities of public properties and private. But there's a kind of a split in the recommendations, which are more broad and more zoning ordinance based for the private properties, and for the public properties, a little bit more specific about you know, particular changes to be made and ways to introduce some soft shoring up of the shoreline with natural solutions. Does that make
Erosion
sense?
prevention practices.
Right.
Yeah, okay, great. I'm just curious if this money and this research is, and the product is going to be available to the private residences of the city that, the shorelines.
Sure. If
Yeah.
they want to mimic some of those approaches to controlling their own waterfront, but there would be specific recommendations for the public to use as they see fit. I don't think this is meant to be an onerous additional layer of requirements on private property owners. It's more to make sure that we have that extra layer that we need in our ordinances, and to provide more information and more design details that will help people have the best approach to protecting their shorelines and leaving it in a more natural state.
It kind of made sense because you might spend a significant amount of time and money to protect this public beach area, but then right next to it is the same exact amount of private beach area, and they haven't been provided with the information to maybe take the steps if they want to provide that erosion control if that's something that they would choose for. So yeah, you've answered all my questions. Thank you so much.
Any other questions from the commission or comment? All right, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, and the last item we had pulled was the fuel purchase. Mitch, you had this pulled?
Yes, a month ago, we had a fuel purchase of 2 tanker trucks for a price of $41,500, roughly, which equates to $2.08 a gallon. Today, we have before us a purchase of 1 tanker, 10,000 gallons, for $37,000. That's a 78% increase, and we can see the price at the pump going up, but $3.70 a gallon is still cheaper than the Shell down the street, but it is a cost that we are having to face because one person decided to get into an international conflict without the voting of any of us.
Thank you for the reminder, Mitch, that everything that happens globally affects us locally. Would you like to make a motion?
Yes. I move that the city manager be authorized to issue a purchase order to Crystal Flash, Inc. of Grand Rapids, Michigan, for the purchase of low sulfur diesel fuel for city vehicle use in an amount not to exceed $37,042.17 with funds available in the garage fund.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you, Jackie. Any further comment?
How does our what is the highest fuel price that we can sustain within what our established budget? Like when we set up the I know we're going to start talking about this soon. What dollar per gallon are we forecasting is to get us through the year? And we're going to have averages, but like how much do we anticipate to spend over the course of a year in fuel costs?
Sure, I see Joel Tapio. Great.
Hey, Joel.
Glad you're
Joel
here.
Tapio, Fleet Director. Thanks for the question, Ken. Basically, we leave the budgeting for fuel up to each department. So it's something that we pass on the cost to, and we try and leave plenty of buffer room. You know, as you know, over the years, fuel has gone up and down, but
yeah,
it's probably going to be more volatile as we move forward. So we'll need to do budget adjustments, perhaps, but and then maybe even a budget amendment if the entire department goes over their spending.
Right,
budget.
and we'll keep an eye on it. At the end of the day, if it got so high, it would end up being an operational and or fiscal decision, right? It might mean we're driving less in certain capacities, and we'd have to have a conversation about what that looks like. But in a lot of ways where, gas prices are generally what they are.
Right.
But yeah, what I said is really what the approach would ultimately be.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Joel.
Go ahead, Lance.
I would say that this is also a terrific time to continue looking at electrifying our fleet, as those prices fluctuate significantly less when it comes to electricity rates.
Yes. Yeah. And thank you for the continued efforts with that, Benjamin, with Brandy from TCLP. We know you're
Absolutely.
working on that.
Yes.
Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, we are on to old business, which is the, oops, it just popped up on my screen. The sale and development of West State Street properties, and so I'll let you kick this off, Ben.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Shammer. We have Rob Bacigalupi here with us this evening. I engaged Mission North, which is owned by Mr. Bacigalupi, to assist the city in preparing the request for proposals. He worked with the city employee team under my direction to develop what's in front of you. He's going to be going through key elements of that RFP with you this evening. There's a couple of things that we're going to propose modifying specifically in terms of the scoring rubric. He'll go through those. I did want to mention specifically things, obviously the conversation is completely open. We'll take direction from the commission, but specifically some things walking into this conversation that I'm looking for feedback on are first, the scoring rubric, which again, Mr. Bacialupi is going to go through some proposed changes. We want to make sure that that accurately reflects what the commission thinks should be emphasized. This is essentially a strong signal to potential bidders on how they should structure their RFP, so we need to make sure it's in alignment with your values. You'll note, for instance, there's a small bit of weighting provided if the applicant includes an option for a police substation. And then also, for your feedback is we do have a reference in the RFP that they have to comply with city policies. Specifically, we're talking about the building electrification policy. The RFP as written would have the applicants articulate how compliance with that electrification policy might impact the bottom line of the project. I do want to emphasize, and one of the things Mr. Bacialupi will go through on that scoring rubric, is we do want to have some weighting given to their compliance with that electrification policy. I've asked Mr. Bacialupi to work closely with folks who have expertise in this area to help us think creatively about how we can require that of developers and have the project still be hopefully as sustainable as it otherwise would be. And I'm talking about, for instance, with workforce housing units being viable within that project, and we want the applicants to come up with ways for that to happen, for instance, possibly using some incentives. So with that, I'd like to, at this point, turn it over to Mr. Bacialupi to walk you through the key elements, the scoring rubric, and then we're here for the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Commission. I think first I'll just go through just a few little changes in the document because we continue to get some great feedback. Obviously, we've had people on vacation, and but as they come back, we're getting even some great feedback. So there are just a few minor changes in the document from the one that you have in your packet that I'd like to propose. And the first one is really just a clarification. This is on page 1.
And you're referring, when you refer to page numbers, you're talking page number on the RFP document?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, not the packet. Yeah, on the named or the numbered page.
5 in our
pages
packet.
on the bottom, which hopefully you can see. It's just under project goals, we list public restrooms, and just want to clarify that, maybe broaden that out. We say either dedicated facilities or participation in the DDA's restroom subsidy program. Just in case that transfers over to the city, we're going to just maybe take out the reference to DDA or clarify that it may be under another portion of the city. So that's really just a clarification. And then the issue of electrification came up. I think that's the next one, and this is on page 5 of the RFP. And we wanted to really clarify that. So under the development process, and then the subheading zoning, which is the last item, I'm proposing that we add, after that first sentence, just a clarification that any development must comply with development regulations, including Charter Section 28, which governs buildings over 60 feet. I'm sorry, this is about the 60-foot one. I was thinking it was electrification. It's actually the 60-foot rule. We just want to kind of point that out, that there is a charter provision that does limit buildings to 60 feet with some exceptions, and then go on to say that the city has an established policy on how these regulations are administered and enforced, with a link to that policy, which is, of course, is on the city's website. So that came up. Just we wanted to make sure that we weren't missing, making it clear that there is this charter provision. So we want to point that out in the document. And that may actually, oh no, there's one more. On page 6, we list under proposal requirements criteria and process. We kind of list what the responders have to put into their document. And we would like to add specifically a description of public parking in there so that they kind of zero in on what kind of public parking is going to be provided, describing the number of spaces, how the ownership is laid out, and then any pricing commitments that they might be offering. So are there any questions on those changes?
I have a question about the subsidy for the public restrooms, which has been something we've done for a while. We've built them into city buildings, but we've also paid businesses to allow for public restrooms. If that funding is not available from the DDA anymore, that wouldn't be a guaranteed program. That would be up to the city commission at the time to decide if it was going to continue with that. So I guess I would want to say that as part of this process to make that clear, that if somebody was thinking about building a designated space or something, that wouldn't be inherently available if that funding goes away. But if that is something that they would get a tenant or something to agree to, then obviously they can work out that leasing on their own. But I just wanted to make that clear as part of the conversation that that program may or may not exist in a couple of years.
Okay.
I have a question about the last amendment that you just covered about the public parking. Can you repeat that?
Sure. So in the section, which is on page 6, under proposal requirements, criteria, and process, we are just kind of, we're specifically saying what their proposal has to include.
Okay.
And though we do kind of sort of cover it in the very first section, which is letter of interest, because we say that you have to state how your team's vision for the site meets the stated goals of the RFP, one of which is parking. But to make it very clear and to ask the proposers to really clarify how parking is going to be provided, we just want to add another bullet that asks them to describe the public.
So we're asking for an explicit statement of who will operate and manage and what that will look like with respect to the public parking piece.
Yes.
Okay, I think that's really important. That was on my notes to request, so thank you for that.
Yep. Mitch, you had your hand up?
Yes, we have a criteria for public restroom or thing in the rubric for public restrooms, but also in the specifications for the police substation, it has a restroom as part of that. Could the public restrooms be counted towards the police substation restrooms?
That is probably a police department question. My guess is no, but yeah, I think the intent of that police substation is, you know, a secure area where they, among other things, can manage events, larger events where they do need a presence downtown. So I would imagine they would want that
We had
separate and
Sort of
secure.
consider it a mini law enforcement center where we don't allow the public into parts of that for obvious reasons, confidentiality and so forth.
And just for the record, because it was happening off camera, we had a vigorous shaking of the head from our chief. So no, that is definitely not the intention to have shared restroom space. So thank you.
Right.
Other questions right now? Go ahead, Laura.
So an additional clarification around the amendment that you're making with respect to the electrification policy. I think that if we're going to explicitly state the 60-foot charter requirement, which I believe we should, that was another question I had, I think we need to explicitly state on page 5, maybe underneath that, under city policies, and the exact electrification policy that we have, or included as background material, because right now it's there, Ben, and I know in your memo you outlined where it was buried. It's on like page 6 or 7 under the financial piece, but it's really buried. It's hard to find. And I think with respect to this, if we can detail it under city, you've got zoning, and we'll include the charter provision, but then underneath that, other city policies, and include the electrification policy, and then with a reference to a background exhibit.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
think would be
I
very
agree.
helpful.
Yeah.
And it's just a sentence or two, so why not, right? I mean,
Right.
especially.
And then the other piece, and it may be in there, I know we referenced the strategic plan in kind of the opening preamble, but will the strategic plan be included as a background exhibit?
It's going to be linked.
Okay,
yes.
that's even better.
Yep.
That would be great.
Both of those. Yeah. Go ahead, Jackie. Heather.
I wondered if it's possible, as I was reading through it, it seemed as though there was an assumption that beyond the obvious benefits of housing and parking and all of those, that there was an assumption that the financial benefit to the city was going to be based on only a purchase price for the property, which we apparently have valued at $7.6 million at this point. I wondered if we should consider not only looking at it from the asset perspective, but also from the revenue perspective. You know, perhaps we could establish a baseline sort of case analysis that says, okay, if there's no public-private partnership, if this land simply was sold to private developers, what kind of an income stream of property tax revenues would that create for the city? And then to give us some point of comparison as these RFPs come in from various developers, that we can account for parking revenues, property tax revenues minus any subsidies, that we can not only look at what's happening to city assets, but also what's happening to city cash flow. Is that too complex?
No, I think, I'll jump in on this one if I may, and Rob, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but where it talks, and I'm on page 1 of the RFP document, and it talks about that 7.6 million investment you referenced, and it says compensation and or public benefit. And so we are, and of course we will vet how they present the information, but public benefit could be those things that you mentioned, for instance.
As well as possibly if we decided to have a long-term lease for the land versus an outright sale.
Right, yes.
You know, in evaluating various scenarios, I think I'd like to see both sides of that asset and revenue taken into consideration. So I don't know if that affects the RFP or if that is something that happens once the proposals have been received and we're analyzing them.
Well, we could ask for a fiscal impact, which would simply be, you know, obviously if there's any revenue coming in, which there may or may not be, plus taxes, you know, there will be taxes, of course. And those are the only two that I can think of, but we could ask for something like that. Yeah, like a fiscal
I like
impact.
that.
Well, Jackie, I don't disagree with that at all. I was curious about that versus, you know, somebody putting a proposal and doing their circus math of, we're going to twist it this way and do it this way, versus having the city do it after the proposals come in and but them knowing, because we've had this discussion, that
Right.
that's where it's going to land. I agree with the philosophy on it. I just maybe trust our numbers.
And maybe the answer is yes and. You know,
Right.
we incorporate it within the RFP, and then we turn Heidi loose and ask her to,
Trust
you know,
but verify.
verify and compare and contrast.
Yes, and certainly some of that calculation could only be done once we know what they've proposed,
Right.
right, in terms of
Exactly.
taxes and so forth.
Exactly.
Right.
And I also do think that the issue of having a baseline case of what happened if that land was simply developed by private developers. You know, what would that look like for the city? And then we can see what the increments are in both asset value and cash flow.
That definitely would be part of the conversation as a whole picture.
Great.
I agree, yeah.
Great, thank you.
Heather?
I had the same thought, but I was hoping that the city would do 3 different calculations while the RFP is out. One would be single site public benefit, you know, basically this private public thing that we're working with. How would it work with for sale? How would it work if we had the long-term ground lease? And how would it work if we had individual parcels for sale at market rate? And what I'm really looking for is to compare these scenarios so we understand the financial and the civic trade-offs. But I think this could be going on while the RFP is out there.
To a point, yeah.
I also have a question about the electrification section of this. Did I read this correctly, that that the developer must use TCLP exclusively?
Yes.
But what about you know, their own solar, you know, that they're putting on, their own batteries? you know, we're asking for affordable housing, but we're kind of taking away affordability if we're not allowing them to do some things on their own.
Well, that's where the expanding our bench with some talent that can help us think through these things creatively, because, and I say this respectfully, we don't have that on our team. And that's now, we need that assistance from others. And so that kind of analysis and those types of creative thinking, we're going to need some thought partners on that. And we're going to, you know, expect that those that are submitting a proposal, that they're utilizing some really good thought partners.
If you're utilizing solar, you're not purchasing that, you are generating your own.
Well, but that all depends on the generation, how the generation's being measured by TCLP, because ultimately most things end up on the grid still. It's just how much are you pulling and what that rate looks like. So my 8 previous years, but if anybody from TCLP wants to talk about anything that might be going on right now, to that end of like, we have experts that we'll work with to get that maximized, but having a project that's completely off grid, maybe somebody has that and I'd love to see it, but it's pretty rare for major developments in the north. But
I can say,
Lance and then
as a TCLP board member, we just approved a parking, what's the word I'm looking for, overhang in front of the TCLP building, kind of a parking shelter. The amount of power that it's going to generate is a decent amount of power, but it's enough to charge a car and not enough to necessarily, say, run the heat pumps for all of the units. And TCLP has a program to allow solar generation. They hook it up to the grid, and there's certain switches that happen. I do support having this as a fully electrified building. TCLP has a goal of renewable energy electrification by 2040 for the city, and we should be supporting that as they're part of the city. We also have some of the lowest electricity rates in the entire state. You know, like literally half what they are in Charlevoix, just up the road from us. And so, you know, it's good. It's better even from an affordability standpoint. Maybe not for the developer up front, but if they continue owning the property, it's less expensive for them to have heat pumps from a maintenance perspective, and it's significantly less expensive for the tenants in the attainable housing units because it's one system, right? And they're not subject to multiple fluctuations in pricing.
Jackie, you had your hand up.
I was just headed in the same direction, Lance, not only recognizing the benefit of our low electrical rates, but wondering if Light and Power would like to be an official partner in evaluating these RFPs and looking at how they might direct some of their community support efforts toward supporting this sort of public-private partnership, perhaps with startup costs, perhaps with funding of equipment costs. I know that they are community-minded and that they direct funding to those kinds of efforts
They do have some
every
programs
year.
in place.
Yeah.
Yep.
So to
state
be
does
sure that we're leveraging and that they're aware and that we welcome their participation.
Yes, and I'd love it if you could make a note, Rob, to add Light and Power to the pre-submittal team. And I know we can talk with Colin and the folks at Light and Power about that.
And additionally, there's the section on available incentives that's in the RFP, pages 5 and 6. We could add Light and Power to that list of environmental incentives and be specific about like their EOB program and some of the other programs that they have out of the box. And
Great.
then some partnership with Light and Power, Colin, Brandy, I think would be extremely helpful.
Yeah.
Mitch and then Jackie, I both have both hands up.
This is great.
Yes, as I've said before, I think that housing is an important priority, but I do question its inclusion in this box on these parcels. I see parking as a deck and with integrated other things as something that will facilitate more housing in the general area and throughout our whole community. But specifically, I am curious. We have the city-owned parcels, we have the RFP process. Is the scope large enough that we can look at options that a developer might bring to the table that are outside of that? Say, if they are willing to build over the alley for the third and fourth floors, or work out a deal with the, I don't know if the current address, but the Stone Path building on the corner, to say, hey, we're going to give you X number of parking spaces, so to use some of that lot area.
Bob?
Yeah, nothing in here prevents either one of those scenarios, so yeah, those would all be available options for sure.
Great. Jackie, you had?
I was wondering if we have an option to push a little further on commercial building design guidelines for this development. The last time I was involved in a conversation in that specific block of streets downtown, there were some surprising to me elements about our current design guidelines in the downtown core, and I wondered if we even have the option to include in the RFP either a very clear statement of our expectations on how the current design guidelines are implemented, or whether we want to consider as a commission advancing those a little further. One of the options that I thought of was actually related to something like a heat pump. You know, do we want heat pump mechanicals exposed and facing State Street and Pine Street on the exterior of the buildings? You know, what design guidelines do we want for the parking structure component? So is this the right time to be deliberating on that?
Well, what comes to mind are the existing, I believe they're called special standards. There are some design guidelines in the zoning ordinance for commercial districts,
Downtown.
which are admittedly, you know, they're it's a one-page design guideline. So that's a control. There, of course, are you know, I'm going off memory here, but there are controls on where utilities are located. You know, certain utilities have to be in the alley, that sort of thing. And then in this process, we've added in a public meeting where you know, public's invited in, stakeholders are invited in to. I mean, we've kind of framed it that way. We've asked the proposers to kind of expand on it and tell us what they're going to do. But the idea there was to present some drawings and maybe get feedback on things like design. So that's kind of what we thought as an efficient way to add in a public engagement piece to this project.
Lauren, were you about to say something too?
Yeah, there's nothing that would prevent the city commission from requiring some type of design element. I don't know whether you would want to incorporate that into the ordinances, or you could incorporate it as an element in the RFP. Eventually, this will be either a purchase agreement or a development agreement or something like that. So it could be incorporated into that as a contractual term at that time. And so it just depends on how you'd like to do it. If you'd like to put it in the RFP or in the rubric that says something about the aesthetics will be a consideration. It just depends on how detailed you would want to be going into the RFP. Does that help?
It does, and I actually appreciate the idea of including design aesthetics and fit with the surrounding buildings as part of the rubric scoring. I don't know if that has support from anyone else, but.
Laura? go
Yeah, I
ahead.
appreciate that. I actually called Lauren this afternoon with the question about design principles and whether or not we could incorporate that into the rubric. So thank you for bringing that up, and I certainly would support that being incorporated into the rubric and having some weight on it, because I think it's important from the public's perspective also. In addition to public engagement, it gives us, it's a signal to the developer that's an important value of the city commission. So when it's time for the rubric, I had some other things, but before we get there, I did have a comment about just some little things that The RFP right now reads more like a purchase. Like it's all about purchase and all about sale. And we did have an extended conversation at our last meeting about the possibility of a long-term lease. And even the title on the pretty cover page says, to purchase and develop land in the west end of Traverse City, Michigan's downtown. I think it should just be to develop, because we did look at those other, long-term lease, 50-year lease, trying to acknowledge the implicit investment that the city has made into these properties. I think that's important. And also on page 6, it's pretty explicit that it's a purchase. And again, I think we were looking for RFPs either direction, long-term lease or purchase, and trying to weigh those out once we receive the responses. So I'd like to see those changes incorporated.
I see a lot of head nodding. I just want for the staff and everybody to recognize is that I think that's what we had discussed previously. We're all in agreement on that, correct?
Yes.
So purchase or lease, if we can have that, the document amended to reflect that, please.
Yep.
Perfect. And then,
on the rubric,
well, hold-
are we to the rubric yet?
are we on the rubric? Where do you want to be on this?
I just wanted to echo,
Yeah.
can I echo?
Yeah,
Real
please.
quick, I just was going to echo your and Jackie's sentiment towards the design
Yeah.
part being in the rubric. I completely agree. I do agree it should fit the character of our beautiful downtown.
And just to really, since we're going to move on to the rubric part, Jackie, you had said the design to be, you didn't say compliant, but, in the vein of everything else around it in that corner. So just reflecting that, I think design can be very subjective sometimes, but we're saying, look, there's some buildings around here. We want it to look like this side of town. We don't want it to be, I went to school at MSU, the hamster wheel that gets built out of nowhere and it doesn't match anything. So just however that's reflected in your wording for the RFP that's what we're kind of looking for. I don't think we're trying to get into a book that has 3 different types of siding or something that you'd pick from, but just that's a good guide, I would think, to the buildings that are surrounding it and giving some inspiration and idea. Is that consensus or?
I think it's a
Okay.
value statement that the architectural piece is important to the commission.
Right, but I just want to clarify though, because if I'm sitting there not at home and thinking about doing an RFP, I want to know what that means, and I think that was a good example
and I
given.
think you'll find some language within our current commercial design guidelines, but, how they're implemented and knowing that they're going to be evaluated against those standards
Yes.
may be the way to go.
Yep, that's great. Thank you for that clarification. And then I'm going to let Laura finish, and then I saw Heather's hand, so.
Are we on to the
No,
rubric?
before we go to the
Yeah,
rubric,
okay.
I would like to, and I think Commissioner Shaw has something, but Rob, I just want you to know I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you to summarize what you've heard in terms of changes you're going to make to the RFP document before we get to the rubric. I just want to make sure everyone's on the same
Is
page.
Heather's another
No,
change though first?
I have a couple of things to
Yes.
say,
Okay.
maybe
Yeah.
first. First of all, on page 1, when you talk about the housing, it's very specific that you're saying that it's for downtown service workers. You repeat it a couple of times. It is not just, that's not what I anticipated. This is for the whole city. Anybody, people who work at Munson or people who work at our schools. And this is really more about increasing our year-round residential population downtown to integrate it better into the city, and to create a more stable and resilient community. If we have more people living downtown, we have better business in the wintertime. But it's also about that strategic pillar
Right.
that wanted our downtown to be more integrated as a neighborhood. So I'd really appreciate you get rid of you cross it out on page 1, and then there's another one on page 2. Downtown service workers. A little bit derogatory as well. Also, let's see. At the bottom of page 1, you talk about, it says community profile. Traverse City has grown into a sought-after community for visitors, retirees, young families. We don't need visitors in there. We're talking about the people who live here.
For the housing, yes, but like for the parking component. it
And
might
the
be-
commercial component.
This is a community profile. I don't know. Okay, well, I won't fight about
Don't
that one.
completely disagree. Don't completely disagree.
Okay. Page 2, I only have a couple more. Page 2, it says at the top there, it's Sleeping Bear Dunes, and you are talking about the nice things we have here, like strong healthcare, expanded commercial flights, better connectivity. I'm like, what does that mean? So I think that you could highlight that we have outdoor recreational systems with, you know, amazing connectivity, because otherwise I don't know what that means. Again, the downtown service workers, I would like that to come out. And one more, there's a typo. If you're going to capitalize state, you got to capitalize it everywhere. If you can capitalize city, you got to capitalize it everywhere. It's in that second paragraph at the top of the page there. And one more thing. You've got one grocery store down here, one small grocery store within walking distance on page 3. You got Burritt's, you got Fogarelli's, you got the Cheese Lady. How could you say several grocery and food stores? Makes it seem a little less, you know, dinky. And that's all I've got there. Those are the wording changes I'd like to see.
To that end, and just if we can incorporate in some way, because I appreciate the thought where that's going, the Bay Line runs by this as well, which does connect to Meyer Free, and so for another option
Well,
that's a more
then-
affordable. So maybe we're integrating there, like with the connectivity of the
Transportation and
recreation
recreation.
trails and public transportation.
Okay, good.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
thanks. Go ahead, Jackie.
This is a question about timing. I don't know if it's possible to put any kind of a worst-case occupancy date. You know, is there a point in the future where if we haven't gotten this thing done, we need to cut the cord? At this point, it feels to me quite open-ended, other than the date for response to the RFP. And is there any way that we can signal our expectations that time is of the essence, that we don't want to see this property in process for an unlimited amount of time? Is there anything we can do about that?
Well, we would ask them to provide a schedule. We don't really talk about that in the rubric and the kind of in the grading, but we could include that. Let's see.
Even if, I would ask if that's even okay as part of the narrative of like what we expect to have reported, because a lot of these projects, if they're going to be affordable, are going to go out for MISHDA funding and things like that, and that could move it on. But I also get we don't want to be sitting here 7 years from now still talking about what we're going to put there. So kind of however that might be best described as we're looking for people who are actively ready to go. We understand that there's funding mechanisms, et cetera, but showing some haste and that this project might get yanked if there's not haste.
Communicating
Yeah.
urgency.
Yeah. Go ahead, Lauren.
I mean, we can also put that in the contract when it comes down to it. We've done that in other instances. I don't want to reference Lot O because it wasn't super successful that way, but there could also be mechanisms to extend it. I would just caution, like the mayor was saying, to make sure that it's realistic
Yes.
with all of those other elements that are probably going to come into a project like this, so that there's a balance between them coming back and asking for extension after extension, and then having an open-ended timeline that, you know, is just open-ended.
So they know that might be part of the contract ultimately then, yeah.
There
Okay.
was a time component to that Eagle funding. When we originally talked about this, that was one of the issues that made this need to happen fast if we were going to pursue this. When is that Eagle money no longer available?
It expires, August.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's
so
not part of this.
So the proposed timeline with potential July 6th or 9th? What was
July
it?
6th, commission
July
meeting.
6th, commission meeting. That's when we should make a decision on this, if we're going to go forward with it or not, and select an RFP.
Well, true, and also there have been ongoing discussions with Eagle about that funding. I'm not, I don't know exactly where those have landed, but that has included the Brownfield Authority and other partners. So I would say we would have to, with that timing, we would want to check with Eagle as well if there's any ability to make that more flexible or to extend if there is a development on the horizon, I think that's part of the goal of what Eagle wants to see. And so if there is one, there may be the ability to have that conversation with Eagle.
But just to clarify, because we are talking about appealing to people who want to bid on this project, that right now it expires though.
Right.
Before anything would be
Yes.
awarded. We will try, but that's not a guarantee that $1 million is going to be sitting there. Go ahead, Heather.
I'm trying to remember because I'm on the brownfield. It seems to me that they've already switched, maybe Harry knows more about that. This is already, it's moved, they've picked it up and they've moved it out into the county somewhere to bring it back again. or
I'll just
something.
speak, Harry Burkholder with the DD. I'll just speak to the Eagle Grant. The Eagle Grant is eligible until August. We've had several conversations, to Lauren's point, with Eagle Brownfield Redevelopment Authority about the potential extension of that grant, or if it's not ready, close out the grant and reapply. A lot of the other work that's been done on that site has been done through other brownfield redevelopment funds, not necessarily an Eagle Grant.
Okay. I think the brownfield fund has been moved and it's sitting there waiting to be used.
That's good.
So it's still there.
And it is included in the RFP under that list of proposed incentives.
It is, but I think it's important for us to
Right,
say,
yeah.
though, that this is
I
all
agree.
a ticking
It's-
clock. And
As long as that's
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah.
Which I believe it is.
once burned, twice shy of hearing all these things that were going to be available for a project, and 6 years later, it hasn't broken ground, so.
Are we to the rubric yet?
I think first, if Rob, if you can summarize while it's fresh in everyone's minds. I want to ensure alignment here.
Okay. All right, so starting on the cover page, we will remove the word purchase. In the, somewhere probably on page 1, perhaps in the executive summary, make a comment about timeliness and, you know, that there's a desire to move quickly on the city's part. Let's see, and then still on page 1 under workforce housing, we will get rid of the word downtown. I was thinking of just replacing that with city workers.
Or just
It's-
residents.
Yeah, or workforce, yeah, because we're talking, yeah.
That could be
Because you maybe you're
healthcare
not-
workers.
Yeah, exactly.
Members of the workforce.
And maybe you have disability.
Yeah.
It could just be workforce housing across a range
Yeah.
of price points. You just
Yeah.
cut that whole thing.
That's why we're clarifying. This is why we're clarifying.
Okay, great. Let's see, I think we're keeping the visitors, so on the bottom of the page there, unless we don't want to.
We're keeping it.
Okay,
That was the
If
consensus.
there's a
You weren't going to
majority,
fight,
go
you
ahead.
said.
Right.
didn't want to die on that hill. Okay, and then page 2, referencing, I think what I heard is referencing beta, maybe clarifying the connectivity part, but also mentioning outdoor recreation.
Trail systems.
Mhm.
Yes.
All right. And then again, on page 2, down towards the bottom in that last paragraph, removing downtown, the word downtown and service, and just saying for workers.
The only thing I would say that, because you mentioned it on page 1, but then you've referenced the change twice, is throughout not saying purchase, but saying purchase or lease, or
Yes.
something to that effect, making sure that's clear throughout. Okay.
Because
Sure,
it's on
yeah, we're
page
not
6 again.
Assuming a
Yep.
purchase.
Go ahead, Jackie.
Talking about range of price points, is there an appropriate place to communicate that in the traditional percentages of area median income, 80 to 120%? Or is there somewhere that we can say, no $1 million condos on the top floor?
It's in the
Is it-
rubric.
Great,
Yep.
It's in the
thank you.
rubric, yeah. Okay, so under property details on page 3, we will point out that there's more than just one small grocery store. That there are actually a few of them nearby.
Markets, right?
Yeah, markets and food
groceries,
stores, or
markets.
I mean,
Yeah, the word
affordable,
market. Food market. All right, let's see. On page 5, under development process, we do mention the building electrification policy. We have a link in there. I think you were asking about that.
It does say specifically, see section 2.6. I forgot about that when we were talking about this. So, Laura, do you think we really need to quote that because it's saying see section 2.6?
What
Of the
sections?
electrification.
Within the building electrification policy, that section 2.6 are the two sentences that deal with the policy section at issue
I
here.
view the electricity and internet reference as very different than a city policy on building electrification. I would
Okay.
rather see the building electrification spelled out more clearly as a policy, not just as a reference to a utility.
Okay. So I think then what we'll do
Even
is...
if it was just a break there with a new header, that's, you know, city electrification policy. It's buried in there. I had to
Got
look
it.
in order to find it.
Yep.
Or just
Yeah.
call out 2.6
Right.
and write it as it's written in the policy.
We can do that, and we'll
Yeah.
also make it sort of under its own heading, so
Yeah.
it's more
Yep.
pronounced.
Thank you.
But I can't remember how it's written now.
All right, we'll do that.
You're also adding reference to the section 28 of the city charter.
The height,
That is in,
it's further down the page.
Zoning.
Oh,
did that in another spot, I thought.
That's the next one down.
Right here. Zoning.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's on page 5.
it is.
Yeah,
Okay.
under zoning.
Can I jump in really quick? I was testing my memory really quick with Benjamin. The whole policy is only a couple of sentences for the electrification policy. There is an addendum at the end that the city commission can waive this policy if it's determined to be in the public good, which was part of why we wanted to see A versus B. I think we all want electrification, but you know, we have to see where numbers wear out. So can we just link to the policy and not specifically 2.6? It's
I
not
agree
a
with
very,
that.
it's, I remember passing it. It's
Yep.
6 sentences or so, maybe 10. So it's not a complicated document we're asking people to wade through to understand.
I think highlighting that it
Yeah.
exists and being explicit about that with a link is very appropriate, and it addresses my concern.
All right, yes, so we do have the reference to section 28. Kind of mentioned the charter provision, but also the policy, which tells you how that is applied. Okay, page 6. Let's see. Under, obviously, purchase price, we'll change that to say,
Purchase price or lease
or
terms?
something like that. And then I'll have to change that language as well, provide a purchase price or lease terms or something like that. Okay, and then we get to the design guidelines. I'm a little unclear on that. So, you know, that could be done during, it could be in the rubric, which means the design team is going to review it. So they would review it using their kind of impressions of design, and then it would go to city commission, and then you would have a shot at it. Is that kind of the intention?
Jackie, you had referenced I'm
well,
sorry. Yeah.
And I think that perhaps clarifying that we're talking about elements of design, including material choice and ornament, and you know, elements of design to make it compatible with the surrounding architecture.
Yeah, and the surrounding architecture would be Midtown.
We could use the written design guidelines that are already applicable for downtown, But we could also, at our discretion, ask for specifics. And the one that I used had to do with HVAC hardware and whether it can and should be visible as part of the streetscape. So, I don't know. I could use some input here.
Just to refresh folks' memory, what had been discussed a bit ago was that there would be this public engagement session where folks could have some input, and I thought that that's where the commission landed, but maybe I'm
I
wrong.
thought it was also going to be integrated into the rubric itself.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
okay.
yes, yep,
Okay,
yes.
all right.
Because the way that it's written now, that public meeting would be after they're chosen. So, you know, the proposals are submitted, the design team uses the rubric to review them, then it goes to City Commission approves a party, and then I assume after that point there would be an agreement, so there'd be some period of time where the agreement is written, and then the developer would be kind of off and running, and then they would have a public meeting where they would kind of present that. So maybe that's not the right spot for it. I don't know.
Well, I think what I'm hearing you say is by including it in some element of design aesthetics in the selection rubric, we get a first pass at it, and then we get a second pass at it through the public input process. Is that?
That's what I heard you. Yep.
Which I
That
think
makes
is
sense to me.
sufficient.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah. Heather, go ahead, and then
Yeah,
Mitch.
I think we're asking with this RFP for to solve a boatload of problems. You know, public parking, workforce housing, design control, electrification, public restrooms, possibly a police substation, and all of this plus compensation for, possible compensation for the 7.6 million that's invested, and also while getting market rate compensation, and also while imposing requirements that lower the land value. I mean, that's a pretty heavy lift. So I'm really more with what Laura is saying, that by incorporating design elements into the rubric, we are we're showing that we believe that that's a value.
Yep.
And we're showing it not only to the developers, but also to the public.
And I think that's all we need.
Yeah,
Yep.
and adding specific controls at this point, I just, I
Yeah.
can't stomach it,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mitch, go ahead.
Yeah,
And then Ken.
to that point, most of downtown does fall into one of the 3 historic districts in Traverse City governed by the Historic Districts Commission, but that does not cover west of west of Union Street, which we are. And yes, you can say you want it to match the surrounding architecture, but what is the surrounding? Do you want to match the post office building? Do you want to match the uptown condos? Do you want to match the 10-story brick apartment building that is 150 Pine? You've got new buildings going in right across the alley that are a lot more modern. So you can say you don't want the hamster cage in East Lansing as, I would say, a much derided aesthetic building, but it's grown on me in my times there. But I don't see, just within practical design considerations, something that is going to be so out of left field that it can't fit into the broader and increasingly eclectic architectural landscape that we have in this town.
I think you're making a good point, which also, though, supports my hamster cage, that would probably not score as high on the rubric if you threw out the multicolored tubes as part of your proposal. So I appreciate what you say, Mitch, and I think that's kind of where we're going with that. So, yeah. Ken, go ahead.
There are 2 specific spots in this page 1 under project goals, it talks about compensation and/or public benefit. And then on page 6 for purchase price, it mentions offers below appraisal value may be entertained based upon alternative or additional consideration offers. But we don't talk about that anywhere in the matrix as far as how we're going to evaluate what type of incentivization they want to throw out there. Does that make sense?
Well,
Like we mention it twice in this document as things that are important to us because we will consider them in lieu of the full purchase price, but we don't value it with any scoring in the matrix.
So with that, Ken has now moved us into the
I was
rubric.
just going to say, I
So
went to the
we are,
rubric, yeah.
and to
I'm
your point,
segueing
no,
for us.
I mean that for real. Like we've all summarized where we're at now. I think I'm hearing that this is being heard and that our notes are being taken. We're kind of
I don't know what the hamster
clarifying
thing in
it.
East Lansing is, so I'm like, we're segueing to the matrix.
yes. Well, it's turquoise and pink and yellow.
Yeah.
And so but yeah. So let's move into the rubric now. And to your point, Ken, let's. I think Laura was paused for it, so you can start with your questions on that if you wanted, and then Ken kind of has your point to make sure of how we can benefit that, and everybody else can start chiming in of what we think might be missing or else.
Well,
too.
I think Ken raised a valuable point, so why don't we just let him continue with that? And I'm hearing a suggestion
Thank you,
to potentially add to the weighting the financial or other public benefit to the city. And I do agree in terms of that's probably one of the most important issues. So how do we not weight that in the rubric
Yes.
in the
yes,
end?
Yes.
So whether it's long-term lease, whether it's purchase price, whether it's explicit public benefit that is spelled out by the applicant, I think it's important to put a weight on that.
Thank you for so eloquently saying what I said.
Yes, but
I've been waiting all night, Ken.
I would yes.
You were waiting to say it too?
I would question, and I totally agree. I would question and put it back, though, of is it a separate new point on the rubric, or is that really when we're talking about the public good and we're talking about all these things, we're talking about housing? And is that then where it's weighted 20 right now, would we like to see that shifted more and have a higher weight, or shift, how are we defining some of this, of the cost? Because that, to me, with that being such a high measure there, we're automatically giving weight to projects that are going to come with that affordable housing aspect or the workforce housing aspect, and that's measuring our value, as we talked about. So is that we want that weighted more then, or is that there's another element that we think is missing on the rubric to better express that in a different way? So that's where I'm just curious where everybody's at. And Heather, you put your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think you've got a good point. I think that if the developer wants to wax eloquently about public benefit, they can probably do that in their cover letters, which it is required that they submit some kind of written statement, right? And I do agree with Amy that I believe it's the housing that's the public good here. I think you could pull 7 points off public restrooms because we have public restrooms right down here on Park Street, and they don't open, I don't think. Do those public restrooms open? They're mostly closed because they can't be taken care of, and they're vandalized. So, so the public restrooms in the Old Town parking deck, those are okay because they're impossible to find. So I don't know, public restrooms, that's great, but pull some points off there and add that to housing.
I would agree with that too, and I would say though, just to offer the counterpoint of how public restrooms can work too, though, is sometimes it's a business, like Horizon Books for years has allowed people to come and use their public restroom, and there is some lack on the west side of town, so I don't want us to completely write it off, but I agree, we could definitely pull points from that and put it towards the housing, but to add that element. And Lance had his hand up then, Jackie.
Real quick on the public restroom piece, we do have the public restrooms at Hardy open in the summertime from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., I was told. Otherwise, they are not open because of vandalism issues and folks staying in there, frankly.
Yeah, I was just going to concur with Commissioner Shaw on public restrooms. I would, to me, most of the public benefit here is our housing, and I would challenge us calling this workforce housing and call it more attainable housing. in that wording there in number 2. And then I would be supportive of moving, 17 to 20, 17 points for public restrooms is weighting that pretty darn close to attainable housing. And
Yeah, I agree with that.
that's a little, it's too much. So,
Yeah,
public restrooms are a good 10.
yeah. I agree with you. And then Jackie and then Laura.
I was struck by the current weightings in the rubric that we had public parking, affordable housing, and compliance alignment with the strategic plan, OKRs, all at 20%. And I wanted us to be sure to have the conversation here about the trade-offs between public parking and affordable housing. And it sounds to me as though what I'm hearing here is that we're raising the relative importance of affordable housing.
Yes.
Do we want to reduce, to some extent, the importance, relative importance of public parking?
I don't think so. I think public parking is a public benefit, and it's definitely a need downtown, and it's serving, although a different component of our strategic plan, it is important. So I look at public parking, and I like Lance's suggestion to change workforce housing to attainable housing, having higher weights certainly than public restrooms, and certainly higher than the police substation as it is now. So that would be my response to that.
Really quick, I agree with that. But I think before we go putting attainable housing instead, attainable has a definition in a lot of areas of a strict percentage.
Yep.
We're keeping this really open, so maybe we would say subsidized housing, or we don't say that phrase anymore, but something that indicates housing that would be below market rate, or below the average AMI of the city, something along those lines to make it clear, because we're saying in here we're 80 to 120, but we could go lower if people wanted to. Attainable is much lower than 80%.
I'm comfortable with that. I mean, we have it spelled out in the rubric, the specific AMI criteria, so that seems reasonable.
But
How about we just change it to
targeted
housing?
housing?
Yeah,
that-
targeted housing, I
Targeted
like
housing,
that.
that's
Let's do
fine.
targeted
But if
housing.
you change it there, don't you have to go back and change it all through the whole document?
Yeah.
Probably,
That's a good
yeah.
idea, though.
Yeah.
Control F.
But you are wishing to keep
Control R.
it at 80 to 120%
Yeah,
though,
that's
right?
fine.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
75, at least 75%
Mm-hmm.
at 80 to 120%.
Yep, and then Heather had her hand up. Yep, go ahead, and then Jackie, I see yours is.
I think that public parking is also a public benefit, and I don't think there's any problem with the developer ignoring public parking, because hopefully they're going to manage it and make some money off of it. But I would, if we take the public restroom, if we take 10 points off public restrooms, add it to workforce housing, now we're at 30, right? Parking 20, housing 30. I would also ask you to consider taking 10 points off adherence to the strategic plan objectives, because you can take those objectives and you can make them fit any old way that you want.
That's a good point.
So I would take 10 points off that and also add that to workforce housing.
And you don't have to make this equal 100, right? It's truly however you want to
Yeah.
Oh,
prioritize.
that helps so much.
Jackie, and then Ken, I saw your hand come up too. Oh, but go ahead. Did you have a
Actually-
question, Rob?
No.
Okay, sorry, I thought you were, yeah.
Actually, I want to reinforce what you just said, and maybe clarify for all of us that when we're talking about strategic plan and OKR alignment, what we're really talking about is that idea of downtown as another neighborhood of the city. Making it function
Adding to the
and
resilience
feel
of our city and
like
incorporating it
another
as a
of our
neighborhood.
neighborhoods.
Well, there's other aspects, though. I would look at it, also you have the environmental stewardship piece through the electrification policy.
Yes.
So I think that there's a couple of areas, but I agree with Heather that anybody responding to this could creatively craft ways to show that. I would request, this is nitpicky, but can we change adherence to alignment? Alignment with the strategic plan, I didn't love adherence. And then the developer capacity number,
Hold on just a second.
Oh,
Ken had his hand
sorry,
up
Ken.
before.
I leapfrogged you.
We took a lot of the bathrooms took a pretty big beating here, and I just want to focus on the point that, like, doing this development without at least one or two public restrooms, men, women, unisex, whatever it may be, they're like, this has to be a component. You can't do this project without some sort of public restroom, right? It's just, we're just not going to weight it as high, right?
Right.
Just want to make sure we emphasize that, because it lost a lot of importance really quick, and
Yeah, and again, stressing to your point, Ken, it should be available, it can be available as, look, it's one of your tenants or whatever is agreeing to have their restroom public facing, they're gonna take care of the maintenance and toilet paper, and we're gonna give them extra money for it. That's part of the programs right now. They're not all just built into parking decks and things like that.
When
When you walk downtown, there's signs that identify it, so that can be part of that
when you
versus.
say tenants public facing, I do remember this, the first floor of this is going to be potential
Right.
retail. We're indicating that one of those retail facilities is going to be provided to the community, or there is,
It could be, a
Okay.
retail establishment says, we're gonna have like
Okay,
Horizon Books.
okay,
We're
great.
gonna allow you to use our restrooms. There's an assistance to that from us. Or it could be it gets built and there's a hallway and maybe they do have a bathroom, a couple of unisex bathrooms or something in there to help out. But it doesn't just have to be like our city ones that are
Yeah.
attached to a parking deck or something, and as Heather pointed out, are closed in the winter because it's too cold and we have to kind of watch out for them to be vandalized. It's something with an eyes on the streets kind of
fabulous.
perspective.
I think we made that, we clarified that.
Yeah.
Because my whole idea of public provided restrooms are similar to what's on Park Street, and that is a problem that they're not attended and they're not always available. So retail focused. Perfect.
Yeah, great.
Well done.
Thank you for that clarification, Ken. And Laura, you had your hand up.
Okay, it's my last point. Item number 6, developer experience and financial capacity. I would argue that this is the most important weight, because if the developer doesn't have the expertise and the financial capacity to deliver, getting to Jackie's points earlier on completion date, it's all for naught. And so I would like to see a higher weight assigned to number 6, recognizing that that may reduce weights of some of the other items we've all talked to, but it's relative and it doesn't have to add up to 100. So my opinion is that that does need to be weighted higher than these other categories, because without it, you don't, higher than housing, because without it, we don't get housing.
I have another question, just on the language that I'm, strong evidence, outstanding financial capacity, they kind of sound, I don't know what those mean. It kind of sounds like I'm going to get healthier this year without putting a metric on it. Maybe that's just my thought. But I would concur that, if a developer, look, it just happened to us, right? We had a development that couldn't make it didn't.
Right.
They couldn't get the finances, and
So it's that.
and so we're back at. I don't want to be back at that, and then have a property halfway under construction or something. So I would agree. And we have other rubrics that we've put in place over the past couple months, and they were, I think, at like 120 points. And so why not mirror that? I would agree. Add points to put it just above the targeted housing.
Okay. Ken, you had your hand up.
Oh, okay, where I thought you, Lance, where I thought you were going with that didn't end up being that. Because my
Sorry.
question is there a rubric score that won't be acceptable for staff to be able to present to the city commission?
Oh, also a good question.
That's kind of, we might only have one developer submit for this. What is a score that is unacceptable that won't be brought to us for consideration? Like how
I
do,
think with an item of this magnitude, there is no such minimum score. I think that if there's a development that's proposed, let's say it's just one, we bring it to you, and then you make that decision. And we will have the basis. We may say, we don't think you should entertain this for these reasons, but ultimately, I would anticipate bringing that to the commission. That's not a decision I would make.
okay.
That's fair.
It's
Excellent
a
question.
real life situation
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
dealt with,
Good
so I
question.
kind of wanted to
Great question.
address
Yes.
that. That's where I thought you were going with that, but the funding halfway through the process falls through and everything kind of stops.
Right.
So yeah, the financial developer experience and financial capacity was a great component, but it wasn't the thing that I was thinking of, and I wanted to bring
Also,
that up.
I would agree, though. Yeah, thank you for your clarification, Ben.
Heather, go ahead.
Where does parking management fit into this? Does this go into the rubric? Where,
Would that be part of the proposal?
Part of the
Where's the-
financial analysis, I would think.
Mm-hmm.
Can you
We
say
added
more?
it to
where does
page
the
6.
parking management fit into all of this? Where do we talk about who's managing the parking?
I thought we added that to page 6.
I didn't hear that.
We had, we,
Yeah,
well,
we
we
will
had a-
ask who's going to manage, you know, is it going to be the city, is it going to be
Right.
them?
Is that something we have to
That-
define right away, or can we
That
see
was
what
the-
people bring
part of the
forward?
summary that you added about
Yeah.
parking management?
I thought in the
had-
very beginning of this conversation, we had, we talked specifically about the public parking component and who would be responsible for the operations and management of that.
I think a definition for public parking, but my thought was that we were going to leave it open-ended as far as management so that you can make that
Right,
decision.
so it's a
not-
piece of their response, not weighted in the rubric.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
that's what I understood as
Okay.
well.
Yeah. So they might say, look, I'm going to hire my own people.
Right.
I'm going to keep all the revenue, and
And
we're
you
going to
get
build a
nothing.
parking
Yep.
deck, and that's their
Yep,
choice.
right.
Or they might have some other proposals that we would entertain.
Something we wouldn't even think of.
Great. Other points right now? And actually, Rob, do you have questions for us right now?
Yeah, so there are two new rubric items. There is the electrification policy, and just to, I was thinking that would be a lower one, but I guess I throw that out to you all in terms of how to weight that.
My 2 cents based on what we've been kind of talking about is that we're asking for them to price with and without the electrification policy. So, right, isn't that where we landed?
Yes,
Yeah.
yep.
And so to me, that's weighted a little less because it is the policy. If they have a really exceptional thing that doesn't meet the policy, but somebody else has, I mean, the housing and everything else are weighed so heavily in here that to me seems like it's what we're hearing is it's something we want us to consider, but it's not up there with parking, housing, I guess, developer experience. Where do we rate that on restrooms, I guess would be my question. Is it like lower or higher than restrooms?
I would say it's almost equal.
Okay.
I
Heather?
would say it's up with public parking. If we don't give it the weight of public parking at least, we're saying we don't really care.
That's right.
I agree.
Well, I would, I mean, yeah.
The electrification policy already says we can fiddle with it,
Mm-hmm.
right? So we don't need to, I don't think we need to fiddle with it more in this rubric.
Okay, we'll go ahead, Lance, really quick, and then
I was going to say, and I agree, if we're committed to electrification by 2040, you know, it is important. We've already made this commitment. We need to hold to the commitment. So I would put it in line with parking, and we can keep adding points, right? We don't have to be 100.
Well, my question, though, to clarify, and maybe I'm getting this wrong, but is we're asking them to give us electrified and not electrified, no matter what, for the proposal. So that is part of what we can say is, look, we like this proposal, and we know with electrification it's going to cost this, and its weight is this. So that's where I'm saying, like, everybody's supposed to bring us an electrified project. So that's where I'm questioning the weight, because if we're saying, great, let's give a ton of points because everybody's electrified, and we're asking everybody to bring an electrified proposal, then, you know, how does that weigh out? Sorry, go ahead, Heather, and then go ahead, Lance.
Well, do they have to present both of those? Why wouldn't they just present one? I think this also pertains to the additional foundation to support 2 more floors. Why would we require that? If they want to put it in their proposal, go ahead. But frankly, it's illegal right now
If
to
that's-
build that.
That's up to the commission.
So
yes.
why wouldn't you say, why would we require it? If they want to put it in, go ahead, but don't require it. And
I
the
would
same
think
with-
that the default should be that they comply with the electrification policy.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, but that if they want to provide an alternative,
If they want to,
they can for your
Okay. But we're
consideration. They're
not
not
requiring-
required to, right?
So-
I think that would otherwise signal that we're not that interested.
So then I would go back to the weighing of it, because I'm fine with that too, but we wanted to give, what had been kind of originally presented was, we want to give people the option of like, look, we could do 10 more units if it's not electrified by cost, and we at least would know that going into the
Well, they could
decision.
put that in
And I was going to say, they can put that in, so, but we're requiring electrification out from the set, so now again, it's a requirement that everybody should have in their proposal then. So it's almost like giving everybody like 100 points or 10 points on your quiz just for showing up, because that's what they're supposed to put in there. So that's where I'm getting to the weighting of it, as far as weighing as high as housing and as far as public parking, housing, and the developer experience. I'm not saying it shouldn't be on the rubric, but how do we want to weigh that then?
But if you
And
don't
that's
weigh it, then they're just going to come back and say, well, we're going to electrify this little bit, but we really want
And
to actually not electrify most of it.
I'm confused.
I would put in the language of the scale that the developer matches the policy of the city, right? Because there's only one line in the city policy, that's 2.6, all city-owned property sold be deeded restrict until 2040 to fully electrification and obtaining 100% clean renewable energy. However, there is 6 other parts to that policy that are not mandated for city-sold properties, but if a developer can match to those, they support our goals of electrification. So that's how I would at least do the scoring for it, right? Because everybody's got at least getting, hopefully, 1 point, right? And if they brought something to us, but
Right.
then the weight is like, how did they match the whole policy?
Right.
okay.
I like that.
Is there an option to just fold the expectation of electrification into the housing category in the rubric and bump the points?
They seem to me to be very different categories. It seems like electrification fits more with like alignment with the strategic plan and other city policies. If you wanted to group something together, I would say it would fit there. And I agree with Lance's comments about there is a degree of complying with the policy in terms of the number of sections. And we have that odd little waiver clause that basically says on a case-by-case basis we can waive it. And so I think because that's in there, you would get less points if you said, well, we'd just like to waive it.
Right. And so, yeah, that's fine.
So I
yeah.
agree we should include it in the rubric, whether it's grouped in with alignment with strategic plan or whether
think it
it's
should be on its
itself.
own.
Okay.
If we want to
great.
look at each point, like Lance
Yep,
had pointed out, which I
great.
think is a good idea, I think that warrants it
Yep.
being on its own, because
Yeah.
otherwise we can kind of get into the weeds
Yeah.
too much of them saying, well, they didn't get the full amount of points, even though they had,
Yeah.
everything
Yeah.
else on our OKRs,
Yeah.
they were lower on this.
Yeah, I agree.
So, and so you guys want it weighed at I forget what number we're at right now,
20.
30, 40% for or 30, 40 for the
That's a lot.
housing?
No,
Or
20
parking.
for
No.
parking, same as
Parking.
parking.
Same as public parking. Okay, that's where we want it. Great. Okay.
Electrification is same as public parking.
That's great.
Correct.
Okay.
All right, great. And then the last one is design consideration. So is that going to be low, medium, or high, I guess would be the question.
Mitch?
I was saying 5 for low.
Oh, 5. Okay, not raising his hand. He's saying 5.
I would have lobbied for 15.
That's not too high.
I would say whatever the strategic plan objectives is, I would give it design. Are we-
Okay. Well,
And I don't know if we're only at 10 and for,
I would say I'd cut it in the middle and go 10 then.
yeah.
I'm
I
good
think
with that.
strategic plan objectives, it's 10 anyway.
Yep.
'cause we've
Yep.
reduced
Yep.
it.
okay, so we're hearing consensus on 10?
Yep.
Okay,
All right.
perfect.
When we add all those up, what do we get to?
Who knows?
I'm just curious, can we divide
It's
it by
far
a
too
multiple
late
of 5?
in the
Answer
day
that
for me
question
to have
at
been
this
following the
time.
math. Rob, other questions for us right now while we're kind of wrapping ourselves to?
No, I guess just to wrap up real quick is the design team, again, will be using the rubric to review. We did have a meeting last week, and some of the members said, gosh, I don't really know, a lot about this subject or that subject. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to grade it collectively as one group, as opposed to like each individual grading it.
That's good.
So we're going to lean on kind of experts in their field for each of these categories
Great.
at the design team level, and then present it to the city commission.
Great. Any other clarification points or anything that the city commission would like from Rob while we got him here?
I think we should add these up and see, and agree on what the point system is. Parking 20, restroom 7, police 6, strategic 10, electrification 20, design 10. What does that equal? 50, 60, 73.
Did you say
What'd you
housing?
say?
I said 73.
I have not,
73.
I didn't rate housing or developer.
Because developer experience and ability to deliver was going to be the highest.
The highest
Correct.
one. So we've got 73 points right now. What do we give housing and what do we give developer?
I mean, are we thinking developer would be, I'm just going off of 30 because somebody said that for housing.
27.
Well, no, actually, what I was just going to say is, do we give developer 35 then? Because we said we wanted it higher than housing, than the
And
housing
give
even?
housing 30?
Sure.
And give housing 30?
Yep.
Okay, great.
And we have a
Somebody's doing
number.
math over there. I see them working.
It's a very strange number.
138.
138. The magic number, 138.
Does that mean that developer experience is the same as housing? Is that?
No,
It's
it's
5 points more.
5 points more.
5
So 35 for developer experience, 30 for housing,
Okay.
For a total of 138.
for a total of 138, because it absolutely makes sense. It makes sense by the elements. Let's just, it's the collective pieces
We can agree on it.
make it make sense. So, all right, so we've all done this now. There is a motion in the packet.
Oh.
And so now, are we feeling confident in what we've hashed out here and worked on? Lance, go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to move that the City
Great.
Commission approves the publication of the request for proposals for the sale and development of city-owned land on
Oh,
the
No, all the way
sorry.
up to the top.
Yeah, you want to go to page 2 of that whole packet.
page 2 of the
Yep.
entire. Did I?
Right under recommendation.
Oh. Yes, I move that the City Commission approves, this is what I was reading, I thought. That the City Commission approves the publication of the request for proposals for the sale and development, for the potential sale and development of city-owned land on the west end of downtown Traverse City as included in the official meeting materials as amended for the City Commission's April 6, 2026 regular meeting.
I just wanted to be sure because I didn't hear every word. Did you say just sale and development or?
I said the potential.
Okay, perfect, great.
Mhm.
All right.
All right,
I'll second that.
thank you. Any further discussion as a whole? Go ahead, Heather.
I just want to make sure that we are agreed that it's not required to submit both an electrification and a non-electrification idea, and it's not required to submit plans that would support two additional stories.
I think
And if
we're
you
all,
want to, but you don't have to.
are we all in agreement, nod heads, or does anybody object? Okay.
Agree with that.
Okay, so we've
That
got some
was-
consensus on that. I see
that was-
Rob's listening attentively to make sure we're right.
There was community concern related to that if a developer followed the initial plan that was developed by the DDA, it incorporated the ability of the footing and the structure to have 2 additional stories built on top of that. If the developer for this RFP built it following that, there could be an assumption that they would be likely to build a second floor. They would be incurring costs under the assumption that something might potentially happen. That was prior to the amendment to the city charter, forcing the vote on the building over 60 foot tall.
But let's clarify that this is, we're not requiring it at all.
We
Let's-
are not
We're
requiring it.
underlining
I think
that, but
that's the-
if somebody wanted to build it that way,
That's on
it's-
them.
I was just going to say, it's on them, and technically any proposal that came in could be over the 60 foot, but they have to go through the whole process. So they'd be saying, we want to bid on it, and then we want to go for a vote, and we want you to accept that. I'm saying that because I think it's incredibly unlikely that would make the rubric high, but
Right.
we legally cannot say that there's not an opportunity to go higher than 60 feet because the charter does allow for that.
Provided
So
there's
just
voter
wanted to-
approval.
Yeah, provided,
Right.
so.
Public
but-
housing might get voter approval.
Yep, so there we go. I agree.
I think that what we were trying to, myself and Commissioner Shaw were trying to say is that
Yeah.
to emphasize is that as part of this RFP, we are not requiring that you
Absolutely.
follow that original plan. You may
Absolutely.
if you choose to, but it is not a requirement for you.
Yep, that did not
Okay.
make the final step. And Mitch, go ahead.
But to that point, a stronger foundation, yes, could support additional stories, but it
could.
could also just mean a more robust building that is more durable and lasts longer.
And less affordable.
Yep, yeah, probably less affordable. Very good point, Heather. Any other comments from the commission? Seeing none, any public comment on this item? Okay, seeing none, I'll bring it back for a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And we are going to take, we're going to take a 5-minute break. If you are here to get signatures, I think there's a couple students, you can come and get signatures from us right now. and be excused. If not, everybody else, we'll see you in 5 minutes.
It's fine.
All right, everybody, let's start making our way back. We got like another, I'll give you another minute if you need to stretch a little more.
I don't even remember that.
I know, I didn't really remember either, so.
Picked up on that.
Yeah, which is fine, we just need to
Their tables
bear that in
too high.
mind.
This is, their tables, their chairs are nice, but their table's too high. This is really comfortable.
And you feel like you're really low.
You feel small.
I did, you know, when you're done.
Okay. Yeah.
Now we get to this awful public hearing
For
thing.
the NCAA finals.
Well, it's not.
I didn't look at it.
We
They
got
just-
right here.
Okay, then you could raise your board.
Yeah. All right, we'll call the meeting back to order. For those we didn't lose to the basketball game. Yeah. Priorities. Playing for the finals right now. So we'll now move on to new business. It's okay. So we're moving on to new business, which is our scheduled public hearing for the, I'm going to do this wrong tonight, at this
CDBG.
CDBG, all right, I was there. And just to be clear on this, we'll open it up, we'll allow for comments. We are not taking action, there's still some plans and such that we'll be going over, and that will be separate actions by the commission over time. But we just wanted to, this is part of the process, so I just wanted to let people know that, so.
And there will be a second public hearing on May 11th.
There we go, thank you,
Yes.
yes. All right, do we have a presentation?
We have no present, I
that's what
don't
I
think
thought,
we
so.
have to have a presentation.
No.
I think it's really just a matter of opening the public hearing when you're ready, Mayor.
So with that, I will now open the public hearing for this year's funding. Does anybody have any comment at this time? Okay, going once, actually, because this is official, twice. Okay, with that, I will close the public hearing. And I got the gavel out for that, and I actually remembered. All right, so with that, now we can move on to our consideration of authorizing the purchase agreement related to the Pierce Velocity pumper truck. And I'll let you do that, Benjamin.
Thank you, and we do have Joel Tapio here, our fleet manager, as well as our fire chief, Jim Tuller. This would have been on the consent calendar, other than the fact that it's over $1 million. And this is a budgeted $1.1 million purchase of a replacement of a 22-year-old piece of apparatus in our fire department. It's key to us being able to provide the important life-saving and property-saving work that our fire department does. We do, just so everyone knows, we have our garage fund where lease payments are made and budgeted by the department. So this has been pre-funded through those lease payments since 2004. And I recommend that you approve this purchase order.
Do we have any questions, or would anybody like to make the motion? Go ahead, Jackie.
I had one question and a compliment. Was really in awe of your phases and anticipation of useful lives of all of the various pieces of equipment. My question is, was there a particular growth factor over a period of a year or 5 years or a decade that was taken into consideration when you were pulling that plan together?
Yeah, so the garage fund historically has a 5% inflationary rate per year. So we take the original purchase price, divide it out over the anticipated service life of the vehicle, and then add 5% of the original purchase price per year. And that typically results in about what you need to replace the vehicle. We've seen some with like COVID come along and the inflation, supply chain issues associated with that, or especially affect the fire apparatus industry. But we do have a healthy garage fund, and we're fortunate enough to get the ladder truck grant a couple years ago. So there is space in the fund for this purchase. And yeah, to your point, the 6 vehicles that are in that replacement schedule are really ones that are very important within the fleet. So it's important to continue to fund those now. So in 20 years from now, we can count on having the funds to replace those. There's other things in the fleet that we, try and get funding for externally, but those are kind of plan for the worst and hope for the best. We have to have them type of thing. And I do want to say regarding the electrification or EV options with this vehicle, this will have the 2027 emission system in it. So we're actually looking at reducing the amount of nitrogen oxides in the tailpipe emissions by 98%.
Wow.
So our 2004 is a pre-emissions truck. And with, like I say, with the 2027 coming along, it's also a 90% reduction in particulate matter. So
That's fantastic.
the newer diesels are much better, than these old ones that we're phasing out.
That's great.
Good point. Thank
Yeah,
you for
thanks for
highlighting
that.
that.
Yeah. Do we have another question or make a motion?
I'll
Go
motion.
ahead.
I move that the 2004 Cami pumper truck for the fire department be declared as surplus, and further that the city manager be authorized to issue a purchase order to Reliant Fire Apparatus, Inc. for one Pierce Velocity pumper truck in an amount not to exceed $1,114,772, with funds available in the Garage Fund, Fund 661.
Support.
Okay, just to clarify, it was 722,
722,
right?
yep.
I think you accidentally said 772. so I
Oh,
just wanted to-
722.
Giving him an extra
Yes.
$50
Yes.
on $1.1 million.
He likes you that much. You did such a good job on your presentation. All right, thank you, Commissioner Bowmer and Commissioner Shaw. Any further comment on this?
The way that we operate this garage fund, so that we are saving money towards the purchase of the next vehicle purchase, and then we're gonna pay for this truck, we're not gonna get it for 30 months. And we are saving the interest in financing, we are saving the inflation costs. I mean, this is a significantly right way to go about this. When we bought the 2016, that's the first time that we bought the Pierce Velocity, a puck pump under cab. And there's a really neat video of me with 9 and 10 News talking about the garage fund and how it creates this potential to buy these trucks and save money and benefit our community. So I love it. We're doing good things with the garage. So
Yeah, it's a great system so that we're never caught off guard. Well, I
Right.
shouldn't say never, but hopefully never, knock
Right.
on wood.
Yeah.
All right, any other comments from the commission on this? Thank you for that. Any public comment on this? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, so the next now is our voting precinct 4 update and action. Benjamin?
I will turn this over to our esteemed city clerk, Ms. Lutz.
There you go. Sarah's on the spot.
It's a little late for being esteemed. Just kidding. So it's pretty pretty straightforward. Our voting precinct 4 is our little precinct that's over in Leelanau County, and currently the polling location is it's in a garage at the Housing Commission facility on Orchard View on East Carter Center Road. And the Housing Commission is selling that building, that complex. So the sale is scheduled to go through this August. And we've been trying to find a location. There are very strict requirements on what we can use as a polling location for a voting precinct. It has to be a public building. And so graciously, the fire department is allowing us to merge it with our precinct 1 that's at Fire Station 1. Precinct 4 is approximately 500 registered voters. They'll probably see an increase of maybe 100 people in the lines, so it's very minimal.
Go absentee voting.
Go absentee voting or early voting.
Or
Early
early,
voting
yeah,
too
yeah.
is another option. So
Do we have questions? Go ahead, Ken, or make a motion.
Well, I just wondered about parking. I mean, where do you park over there?
There's a whole side.
we're gonna build this parking deck.
I vote at,
it's never been an issue.
It hasn't?
No,
Yeah,
it hasn't.
okay.
I
Yeah.
vote precinct 1. I've never had a problem parking.
Okay.
Yeah,
all right.
it's,
I just walk.
yeah, it's street parking, and then there's some spaces around the
Yeah.
lot, too.
Go.
Yeah. Or stop by Little Bo's after, before and be a client, customer. Ken, you had your hand up?
I'm thinking about Little Vos for a second here. I used to vote at Traverse Heights Elementary School. We lost that precinct, and we were all moved to the library. Now we're losing another voting precinct, and they're getting moved to Fire Station. At the League of Women Voters Forum, this was something that was specifically brought up, and that was accessibility and making it convenient for people to vote. Do we anticipate anything like this? Any more instances where we're going to lose a voting precinct? I know you crossed your fingers.
I hope not. Do you want to build me a building?
I will just say, if I may,
Yeah.
that clerks across Michigan are still trying to figure out what is the chosen pathway for voting. Michigan now has no reason absentee, early voting, and when no reason absentee first went into effect, that was during the 2020 pandemic. So that's an outlier. And honestly, in 2022, clerks all over the state thought that because so many turned out to vote absentee, even in 2022, that the polling places would be relatively dead, meaning the in-person voting, and it wasn't. So everyone's still trying to get their sea legs, have some more data. I would anticipate eventually you will see a great shrinking of the number of in-person polling places, but we just don't want to get caught unprepared.
Well, and I would say too, the other factor was TCAPs had to close for elections because of increased security. Like, I remember going to elementary school and people coming in and voting while I was walking into the gym, right? And that just doesn't happen anymore. And so that was one of the trade-offs there. This is a building being sold. So I wanted to give credit to staff and everyone that they do try to preserve our polling places, but sometimes life and other things happen and we just can't avoid these changes. But
Are there any issues with election workers and the amount that we have? Is it something that we need more? Do we have too many as we're closing precincts?
Oh, election inspectors? I'm always looking for.
You're always looking for more.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
That's good to know, but I felt that was something that should be spoken to. I mean, obviously, we know that a little bit greater than 60% of Traverse City residents are voting absentee. So maybe we don't need as many polling locations, but we're doing good things as far as making absentee ballots available, but that's in contrast to closing polling locations for various reasons. So.
Right, they have 3 options in which to vote: absentee, early, in person. We are still, to Benjamin's point, gathering data on the trends on how our population is voting, and we are looking at eventually consolidating some of our precincts. We already have precincts 3 and 10 are at one location, which is the Carnegie Building. There's the potential that maybe we could reconsolidate some other precincts into one building, but we don't want to make that move yet because we don't know what the trends are on how people are showing up.
And we have a federal requirement that voters not wait more than 20 minutes in line.
Yeah.
yes.
When we had 10 voting precincts, we had 10 voting locations. Like, we have all these different precincts, and what I'm wondering is if
We've
we
never
can.
had 10, they skipped a bunch of numbers.
Yeah.
Okay,
Here,
can we
there's
realign
1,
the
3,
numbers, I guess?
7.
Well,
I get asked that a lot.
let's,
Yes.
it's due to the hour and everything else going on, and I appreciate this. That might be something for us to get an update on down the line, but just due to the hour, this is about our enforced closure of Precinct 4 and voting on that change. So, Mitch, you had your hand up. I'm going to recognize that, but I want us to stay on point of this, please.
First, I would like to say, as the Housing Commission representative, that's the clarity. Yes, it is being sold, but it is not transitioning from publicly supported affordable housing. It is being financially restructured. HUD has been just nudging at first, but they have been increasingly insistent on divesting from the traditional public housing model of a public housing authority fully owns and operates a building like Review Terrace that is then a large tower block of public housing, to joint ownership models where you have outside investors, and that does involve the opportunity for additional financial resources to be made available that, in the case of Orchard View, is allowing the expansion to roughly double the number of units. It will still be affordable housing. It will still serve people that live and work in our community. But then getting to this point, I do echo what Commissioner Funk has said about the broader trend of consolidation. Yes, we do have a trend of increasing voting absentee. Precinct 4 I haven't been able to pull up the numbers right now, but
Mitch, we're trying to keep to this. I appreciate it, but we've had the conversation now of.
Precinct 4 does have the highest rate of absentee voting of any precinct in the city.
I do say that I have great faith in our city clerk and her ability to make these assessments and judgments, and I really think we should lean on that.
I'll make a motion.
I'm ready to make the motion.
Thank you.
Okay. I move that the relocation of polling place for Precinct 4 from Traverse City Housing Commission at 10200 East Carter Center to Fire Station Number 1 at 500 West Front Street, which has been determined by the city clerk as a suitable location for a polling place, be approved.
Support.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Funk, and yes. All right, any further questions about this or comments? We kind of went into comments before we got the motion, so I had 2 names written down and thought we already had the motion, so that was on me. Mitch?
Just to clarify, because it is in a separate county, administratively, even if there is further consolidation, Precinct 4 has to be kept separate.
Correct. Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
And you can tell by the engagement that we all appreciate the work of the clerk's office and all of our voting opportunities, so we thank you guys for that all the time. And now we'll move on to the resolution opposing preemptive local control. And Lauren, did you want to just give us a quick intro on that?
I'll give you a real quick one. So this was sort of prompted by some bills that were proposed, and the feedback that I sent those out to the commission a few weeks ago, so you'd be aware of those. And I think the feedback that we got was that the commission would like to see a more broadly worded resolution that speaks to local control in general. There have been a number of attempts by the legislature to preempt local control. One of them that is particularly important, and I bring up whenever I have a chance to, is the short-term rentals issue. That's sort of a zombie bill that keeps getting killed and coming back. But what it would do would be to preempt local units of government from regulating short-term rentals at all and labeling them as a residential use. So obviously, we know that that would be very detrimental to our city if we could not regulate those. And that's the kind of thing that this resolution would speak to, and just to send the message that local control is important to the city commission, and that local units of government like the city commission know what's best for the local community that you represent, and that is why it's important for the legislature to understand that it's not a benefit to the locals to preempt that, and please don't do that.
Great. Other questions for Lauren at this time? Or a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Now I have to find it. Okay. I move that the resolution opposing preemption of local control be adopted.
Support.
All right, thank you. Yes, and Funk again. Didn't have to even erase my last one. Any other comments? Go ahead, Mitch, and then Lance.
I understand in principle this, and as somebody that has been involved before I was on the city commission with the Board of Zoning Appeals and the Planning Commission, I am a big proponent of local control in our planning and zoning, but I am concerned that, yes, this is as broad and overarching as it can be, that it is a bit too broad, because there are some situations where an overarching state regulatory framework does make more sense than ending up in a patchwork. I can think of, was it last year or the year before, with the utility scale wind and solar siting bill, that the Michigan Municipal League, in which we are a member, and I've gone to their conferences, and they specifically instructed us to say that cities and villages should be exempted from that, which I can understand. We don't have the same acreage as Garfield Township or many other municipalities, but many of the wind and solar farms that have been developed do span multiple municipalities, and it can be important to have, in that case, a state framework in which they're operating. And yes, there can be guidelines on the local level, but it's not, we are the ultimate vetoers of everything that happens.
I think Benjamin wants to speak to that.
To your point, I'm wondering if the paragraph or section 4, labeled section 4 on the final page of the resolution, says that the city of Traverse City hereby opposes any legislation that restricts home rule and preempts local control, particularly any preemption of local zoning and housing choices. So it really zeroes in on that. So hopefully that takes care of your concerns.
Yes. Lance had his hand up, and then Ken.
I yield to Ken.
Okay. Go ahead,
I was just going to say that zoning and planning have their challenges, and they can be frustrating and difficult to deal with at time, but they are better than nothing at all. So,
Can I take that?
Yeah, go ahead, Lance.
So, I mean, I think this came to us, and I want to be very clear why this is in front of us. It came to us because there's a few state, what's the word I'm looking for?
it's bipartisan.
Some bipartisan bills, legislation, thank you, Ken, that would fundamentally change our zoning across the entire state. And that would, with the intention of that zoning change, be so that more housing could be built or more residential units could be considered residential units. And so this is essentially, in my opinion, I know it's very broad, but it is somewhat sending a message to the state legislature that we oppose those rules. And I don't necessarily know if I oppose those rules that they're proposing. Maybe some of them, like the trailer parks in downtown areas, like that, you know. But at the same time, I don't know if I necessarily support saying no to all of that. For far too long, I think maybe not our planning commission, but several other planning commissions won't pull their head out of the sand and help housing. And so I'm going to be voting no on this.
And just to clarify on something here, just as part of the general conversation, resolutions are not really that binding. We can vote for this on the essence of protecting Home Rule Act and wanting to keep local control and zoning. We can pass what we want to pass. We could later on pass a resolution saying, we accept our usual, we are taking exception to our last resolution because we support this effort for affordable housing or housing accessibility. It's not meant to be done on a whim, but it's also not going to ever prevent us or other commissions from re-examining or looking at the lens of certain things. And I think that's where Lauren was very careful of, like, the part that Benjamin just pointed out, that preempts local control and local zoning and housing choices. Because we've definitely, I know that's what was the most recent package of bills, but as Lauren pointed out, we have had a lot of threats for short-term rentals to be allowed, from the state to be allowed everywhere. And it's definitely tended in recent years to lean a little bit more towards taking the choice away of locals for what they want, or they envision their own community, to what wants to be prescribed overall and from whatever powers that be that are pushing for it. So people can still vote how they want. I'm not saying that, but I just wanted to really stress to everybody, this doesn't stop us from expressing our own views later and or changing our minds or rescinding, but it's kind of meant to be, as Lance said at the beginning of his, even though he's not in favor of it, is just a sign to the Lansing legislature of stop trying to do these blanket things to us. Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, I'm in full support of this. I think it's particularly as it relates to local zoning and housing, no one's in a better position than our local officials and our appointed leaders to understand the needs of this community. And I think it's really important that we advocate for local control, particularly on those specific issues. So I'm in full support.
And my brain is not working since the break, sorry. So do we have a motion?
Not yet.
We
Yes.
don't.
No, I'm actually asking.
I can-
one person, sorry. That was my nice way of asking.
I'll make the motion. I move that the resolution opposing preemption of local, I think I did.
Yeah,
I did, I'm
sorry.
having deja vu. I did say
Yes,
Question,
you do,
motion,
thank you. This
discussion.
is,
Yeah, great.
sorry,
Call
guys.
vote.
Yes,
No,
yes,
wait,
and,
I want-
yeah, go ahead then, please.
So
Sorry, I wasn't trying to cut it off. I was just trying to make sure we were going in order, and apparently we are already. So,
Yeah, I support this because it's just about allowing us to make our own decisions. It's not that, I mean, manufactured housing on our city lots, would that be that terrible? I mean, it's not that I disagree with
There's
any
definitely
of
some
their,
already.
any and all of what they're trying to do, but they're mandating from the top down. There is no world where mandates that come from the top actually work. You have to build from the bottom, and you have to build through consensus. And that's what I see, that's what this means to me, this resolution.
I view this as like a
Go-
broad
hold on, Jackie put her
advocacy
hand up,
statement.
sorry.
So it's, Go ahead, Jackie, sorry.
Please, I defer.
Yeah, I view this as a very broad advocacy statement for local control. And I agree with Heather's statement. I think it's important enough that we make this statement.
Jackie and then Lance.
I support it entirely on the issue of local control and my foundational belief that decision-making should be pushed down to the lowest possible level and that it should be conducted by elected officials who can be held accountable.
Thank you. Yeah.
I would say I would support it if this was a resolution supporting something and not opposing something. I think we should resolve to support things, and we should not resolve to oppose things. Even if the language changes a little bit, it's just I don't like to resolve to a negativity. I like to resolve to a positivity.
Oh, that's an interesting point.
I would support
Well,
changing this to a positive
If that would
resolution.
turn into a unanimous vote from the city commission, I think that that's really a powerful message to send, and the resolution could be reframed entirely to a resolution supporting local control and supporting legislature taking action that emphasizes and supports and embraces local control.
I would
And
support that.
I see Lauren nodding her
And
head.
we could just change, with that being said, we could change the language of number 4 and just flip the perspective on that to say the city of Traverse City hereby supports legislation that embraces home rule and local control, particularly in
And that's it.
in cases of local zoning and housing choices.
And could we change the resolution?
title?
The title.
Yes.
Would that be, as people are looking through it, with that change, would that be acceptable to do now, or do we
Yeah.
want to see a clean version?
Move as amended.
Support.
Well, it's already moved, so I guess what I would have to say is
It's the same two people.
It's the same backwards. Yeah.
So they're in agreement, so
it modifies
the
Okay, good. Oh, yeah, I'd look at my notes, I lost, okay. Okay, so we're all good with that amendment. Are there other questions or
Can we
comments?
read what we're amending this to?
Yes, please.
So we clearly understand it, because I'm trying to figure out the twist on how to make it very clear that we do not support this, but we are doing it in a positive way. I don't know, I can't wordsmith it right now.
It would change the title to say, resolution supporting local control. And then number 4 would say, the city of Traverse City hereby supports legislation that embraces home rule and local control, particularly in the areas of local zoning and housing choices.
And then everything else in here is kind of just stating that we are committed to the concept of home rule, that home rule cities enjoy specific powers. So it all can be very positive, just amending those statements. So it didn't fundamentally change a lot. We're just, as Lance put it, putting a more positive spin on it.
Thank you.
And so are we feeling comfortable with that now? Sure. And I'm going to go to public comment if we have more.
Did we appropriately address it in the parliamentary world?
Yes.
Yes, we had agreement from the mover and the second on the amendment.
We don't need to make a motion to amend or anything
No,
like
your
that?
rules say that as long as the mover and seconder agree, it's acceptable.
All right.
Yeah. All right, and so with that, I'll open any public comment on this item. Seeing none, other than a nice thumbs up, which we appreciate. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. We are now moving on to Jackie's memorandum on the Planning Commission selection. So Jackie, I'll hand this over to you.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I wanted to share some information that I thought might be pertinent to the decision coming up in our next section of the agenda on appointments, specifically relative to planning commissioner selection. It's one of the very few commissions or boards where we have specific guidance from the state of Michigan about who should be appointed and by what criteria we should be selecting them. As far as planning commissioners go, it's governed by the Michigan Planning Enabling Act, and it requires that we strive for maximum diversity in 2 areas. One of them is geographic coverage, so making sure that we have commissioners who are representing all of the various neighborhoods and sectors of the footprint of Traverse City. And then also in terms of what the law terms community segments. And they mention things like agriculture and education. So think of that in terms of what are the pieces of our Traverse City economy and community that make us up. Our current planning commission is fairly diverse in that community segment criteria, which is a great thing, but it is not very diverse when it comes to geographic coverage. We are fairly heavy on the east side representation and very light on west side. Actually, even important neighborhoods like Slabtown have not historically been represented on the Planning Commission. So in addition, there's guidance out there from a couple of really well-respected subject matter authorities, Michigan State University with its College of Urban Planning and its Citizen Planner program, as well as the Michigan chapter of the American Planning Association. Both of those sources recommend against appointing folks with educational credentials in urban planning and professional experience in urban planning. They emphasize the importance that planning commissioners are representative of the residents, the citizens, and the community. So it's especially important that you have that citizen perspective when you're talking about appointed officials as opposed to elected officials. So that's the guidance that we have from subject matter experts. Right now, we have a rare opportunity to appoint not one but two people to the Planning Commission. And the recommendation of the ad hoc committee, of which I was a member, thank you, is the next item on the agenda. The good news is that one of the two recommended individuals follows both state law and the industry best practices by representing the southwest corner of Traverse City, which is great, and by working in the arts and culture segment. The bad news is that the other recommended candidate is a degreed professional in urban planning and public administration and worked for more than a decade as an urban planning professional. Most recently was the planning and zoning director for Peninsula Township. That candidate also resides on the east side of the city, which is really overrepresented when you look at the entire 9-person commission. So what actions can we take? I will leave that up to the folks here, but I have two suggestions. One would be to restructure the motion that's coming up next on the agenda to allow us to vote separately on the two candidates proposed by the ad hoc committee. Or I see another alternative to return the motion to the ad hoc committee with a request to put forward two candidates who fulfill both state law and industry best practice guidelines. So I'd like to take questions and have a bit of a discussion on whether either of those two options might be of interest and what we might choose to do in our next upcoming agenda item.
One thing I just want to mention procedurally, while the commission can have the discussion you're asking for, of course, is that no citizen appointment to the Planning Commission can be considered by the commission without the mayor bringing that forward. So it's a mayoral appointment.
Thank you.
Just want everyone to be on the same page. So the appointment policy was modified a couple of years ago to provide for an ad hoc for mayoral appointments, and so that's what's occurred. But at the end of the day, a nomination can't come forward without the mayor bringing it forward. Just want to make that clear.
Procedurally, also, the motion when the appointments come up could be made separately by person. It just depends who moves it. They're listed as suggested in our packets, not the must So I just wanted to clarify that for anything. We've done that in the past where people have made amended motions or changed a motion as it came forward. That is allowed. And so I just wanted to make that point in general about the rules.
But you do have to concur as mayor in order, like you
Yes.
have to agree that a motion can even come forward making that appointment. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
But for example, because those two came out of our ad hoc, they could both be made separately. So, because they were agreed upon by the mayor, so.
Okay, good. Well, thank you. Are there any questions from my colleagues here, or yes?
Mitch?
Well, state law is clear that planning commissions under the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act are made at the discretion of the mayor, the village president, or the other municipal head. That is the policy that's been followed here. We have amended our appointment policy for all ad hocs to all interviews and appointments to create an ad hoc of 3 members of the commission, which, if it is a legislatively mayoral appointment, does include the mayor. That ad hoc was established. It met. It interviewed people. It made decisions. A majority of that ad hoc is 2 people. So that policy was also followed. So under state law and our own policies, they were complied with.
If I may, where we fall short of state law is
Call to
in-
the order of business. I don't think
Sorry.
this is appropriate to have back and forth debate.
May I correct a factual inaccuracy?
Parliamentarian.
That's a ruling that can be made by the mayor, subject to being overruled by the commission.
So your objection, though, just for the, I'm
would-
asking the mover, please.
Call to the order of business. This is it's a memorandum, or I guess I would say even point of order. It's a memorandum. It's not a discussion item. It truly belongs in, discussion belongs in the next category where there's action to be taken. If no action is to be taken on an item, there is to be no discussion or debate.
And so I'm ruling with you, but I wanted that clear to everyone that it's a procedural matter, not a random rule that somebody threw out that nobody knows what it means. So is there another question or any other comments about the memorandum that are not deliberative, because the deliberation's in our next motion?
I have one point. I just want to express my gratitude to the scores of volunteers that step up and volunteer their time and their talent to over 23 different boards and commissions that we have. And I think it's important to acknowledge that these volunteers help to impact and shape many important decisions in our community. So thank you for that, and for those volunteers who are sitting in the room. I think it's really important that we express gratitude around that, because my perspective is we should be lifting people up and expressing our gratitude, not bunching them into categories in ways that risk alienating future volunteers or our current volunteers from participation.
I will join in saying we thank both the people who make our boards, as you said, but also everyone who interviews, because they're all also taking their time. So, Jackie?
And I certainly value each and every one of our volunteers. I also value our requirement to follow state law.
And we have something in the packet. Lauren, would you like to address that, please?
Well, the requirements of the law are stated in the statute. So it's a geographical requirement, and there are certain, factors that are required in the law. And there's nothing in the law about having a planning background at all. So just to be clear, that is not included in the statute.
When you say geographic, you mean where the people live, not by neighborhoods?
That you're a registered elector, so you're a resident of the city, and you're qualified to vote in the city.
Lance?
And since my last was just a procedural correction, I do think thank you, Lauren, for addressing that the agenda item, which I believe should probably, this memorandum should probably be a study session, but the substantive legal question behind what's being questioned here is that a planning background does not disqualify a candidate, and that the statute actually supports that expertise. I'd also note her caution about using generational categories as an appointment factor. we wouldn't do that in hiring anybody for a real job. And I say it is a real job to be a planning commissioner. You just don't get paid. It's a real thankless job in reality. I want to say plainly for the public record that I just don't think it's appropriate to categorize community members as simply as we saw here. The people who applied to serve the city, they deserve better than being just a demographic cell in a table. You know, we work really hard to get good quality volunteers, and we should be evaluating candidates on their qualifications, their commitment, and what they bring to the work. And on those measures, the ad hoc found 2 strong candidates, which we're going to talk about at the next agenda item.
And if I may add, this is one of the very few city commissions that actually has a state law that gives us guidance. And by ignoring the issue of geographic segments, I think we are getting into rather suspect territory relative to following that law.
I'm going to make a statement, though, that all 3 candidates that you listed on your chart, which has question marks and not all verified data, are all from areas that we do not have current representation on the Planning Commission from. They're by the neighborhoods that you identified. So
I'm on a point of order.
Yeah.
We need to move to the agenda. If you want to have a discussion, it needs to be after a motion.
So
Okay?
we'll
Let's
move on
do
to the
it.
next item. Okay, so we're moving on now to our Planning Commission motions. There was an ad hoc that met. It was myself, it was Lance, and it was Jackie. And they were to fill the seats of David Knapp and Jess Heller, whom we both thank for their service. As was mentioned, Planning Commission's a heavy load and thankless and payless, so we thank them for that. We thank everyone who applied for this, and we had several very good interviews. And so at the end of the day, these are the recommendations. We can take a motion or motions. Go ahead.
Yeah, I move that Michelle Reardon and Megan Holtree be appointed to the term expiring November 10, 2028, previously held by David Knapp and Jess Heller on the Planning Commission, as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Mayor Shamrow, Commissioner Anderson, and Commissioner Bomer.
Support.
I'll give it to Mitch because I heard him over everybody else. So thank you, Lance and Mitch. And while I'm done writing that, so proceed. Go ahead, Lance.
So I was proud to serve on this ad hoc committee. We spent a lot of time interviewing candidates. I have literally pages upon pages of notes. So thank you to everybody who applied. It was very tough in choosing who we chose. We interviewed, I think, 6 candidates who all took time out of their lives to apply to the service of the city. And Michelle Reardon, she brings a deep, direct, relevant experience in land use, housing, and planning. And then Megan Holtree brings civic engagement, community roots, and a genuine desire to learn and contribute in making our city a better place. Both are exactly what, in my opinion, a citizen planning commission should look like. And I'm glad to support this appointment, and I encourage my colleagues to do the same.
Laura and then Heather.
Process matters, and I fully trust the commissioners who participated in our ad hoc interview committees to bring forward these strong recommendations. And I think we are going to have times, even in these small groups, where there's not 100% agreement. But as we've discussed over the last few months, even in the development of our shared agreements, we still need to move forward and come to agreement. And so I'm going to rely on process here and on the commissioners that selected the candidates that are in front of us.
Heather?
I watched a county commission meeting a couple of months ago where the ad hoc committee that chose a new at-large member of the Airport Authority, the NRAA, was hijacked at the commission meeting. There was a large mail-in campaign against the candidate that the ad hoc chose, and the board essentially said we're not taking your candidate. We are taking the candidate that's coming from this mail-in petition. Given the issues facing Slabtown, I think a Slabtown voice would be a valuable contribution. And particularly as the Planning Commission goes forward with its rewrite of the zoning ordinance. I also think that neighborhood representation is critical, and I would hope that future ad hocs and the mayor would try to be particularly sensitive to this issue. However, I don't care that the City Commission hijacks decision made by ad hocs. And I don't want the ad hocs that I serve on to be hijacked by the commission. So I'm going to defer to the golden rule here and say that I will do unto others as I would like others to do unto me. And I will support this recommendation.
Thank you. Other comments right now? Go ahead, Ken.
I appreciate Commissioner Anderson's willingness to touch a sensitive subject and dig a little bit deeper into this and truly seek what she feels is a well-rounded, well-represented and balanced planning commission. But I want to support the majority decision of our ad hocs, because as someone who's served on multiple ad hocs, the consensus reigns. And I mean, there's going to be winners and losers. There's going to be unanimous votes. There's going to be split votes. And at the end of the day, we're going to move forward with consensus decisions. And they might not be ones that we agree with, but I appreciate you. Thank you for doing what you did.
And I will say, number one, all volunteers are deeply appreciated by myself and everyone who is here. Planning Commission in particular is a heavy lift, and anyone who steps forward to offer their service there is valued deeply. The distinction here and the reason why I chose to bring this forward as an option is the imperative that we are given through state law. To the extent of actually seeking out candidates from unrepresented territories within the city is recommended. That we would continue to have an unbalanced and hence perhaps biased planning commission that is not representative of the entire territory as mandated by state law concerns me very deeply. The possibility of our planning commission shifting to a more professional and educationally credentialed and experienced board of experts as opposed to a citizen representative perspective as recommended by industry experts as a best practice was worth bringing forward for consideration. I'd also like to point out that one of the two candidates that the ad hoc is bringing forward satisfies both of those needs. One of them does not. I would ask again for consideration to approve the individual who does meet those criteria and to ask the ad hoc to, go back, retrace our steps, and look for a second candidate who is similarly qualified.
I will just add my comments here of having served on the commission for many years now. I've gone through and heard tales of mayors who interviewed for their mayoral positions pre our change of our rules that required an ad hoc, where they would show up 5 or 10 minutes late for a 15-minute interview, or they would sit with every candidate for an hour and a half at a coffee shop to pick somebody that was considered the predestined choice. So I am appreciative that we have a process here, that there was room and is room for ample, robust conversation and diverse voices, that we try to work towards consensus, and it doesn't always happen. But as has been stated, we have a process, and we go through the ad hocs and respect our ad hoc work. I'll end with a slight joke of especially Ken, because I think luck of the draw put him on every ad hoc other than maybe 5 for this year. So I just wanted to point out that, you know, we take very seriously the charge. The rules were just revamped beyond the ad hoc requirement a year ago. It was a commission by myself and Tim Warner and Jackie Anderson. And this is through that process that we have established. And so this was where we landed. We have people from neighborhoods that aren't represented currently, and somebody with a healthcare background, somebody with an education arts background, and there's a lot of diversity in our group, and I am thankful for everybody who applied and everyone who serves and continues to serve. I would have, at one point, this was qualified as a rare opportunity. We cycle through people on every board every year. And so whether they get reappointed or there's open seats, we even have openings in between the regular cycle. So this is not as rare. We appreciate the time people give and what they step up to do, and whether they're selected or not. I've had people who interviewed 2 or 3 times and eventually got on. It just is what the need of the board is at the time and the view that is being done by the ad hoc. So I appreciate everybody's input on this. I appreciate everybody's engagement with our city by applying and by serving. And so I just wanted to make that final comment here for a little backwards nostalgic look on my part of how far it's come since I even started and where we're at as far as having all the voices we can in the room. Are there other comments right now? I'll open this up for public comment. Is there any public comment on this item?
I'm going to read the rules real quick.
Please.
We ask that you state your name and address, indicate if you're a city resident, non-city resident, and/or city business owner. We have a 3-minute time allotment per speaker. When your time has elapsed, the timer will beep. And finally, we request that all language be respectful to all parties.
Nailed it, Sarah. Thank you.
Anna Deturi, 340 East State Street, Apartment 2F. I am the current planning chair. I thank you all for this conversation. The one point that I want to bring up that we didn't really cover is that if you're trying to select from certain neighborhoods, people could very well have been priced out of those neighborhoods. You can't really be selective of certain parts of the city when we know that houses in Slabtown go for 2 to 3 times the price of a home in Traverse Heights. It just feels really wrong and discriminatory if we're not just making sure that everybody is representing the entire city, especially in the current housing crisis that we exist in. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other public comment at this time? Seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Roll call, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Ness,
Yes.
Commissioner Bomer,
Yes.
Commissioner Funk,
Yay.
Commissioner Treadwell,
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw,
Yes.
Commissioner Anderson,
No.
Mayor.
Yes, motion passes. Thank you all. We'll move on now to our Traverse City Light and Power appointments. And waiting for it to load. Was this chaired by Laura or was this chaired by Jackie? Sorry.
I think I was the chair.
Okay.
So do I need to make the motion?
I was just going to say,
God, I shut my computer. Okay, hang on.
yeah, we can take a
Here we go.
motion if
I
you
got
want
it.
to
Okay,
preempt
I'll
it with a
make the motion.
comment.
Just that I thank all of the individuals. We had 2 apply for 1 position, and grateful to those residents that are interested in serving. I move that Bradley Mattson be appointed to the term expiring April 7th, 2031, previously held by Maura Brennan on the Traverse City Light and Power Board, as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Mayor Pro Tem Ness, Commissioner Anderson, and Commissioner Funk.
Second.
All right. Any further comment on this item?
Uh,
Oh, Jackie
ahead.
and then Ken.
Just to mention that there was verification of voter registration for Mr. Mattson. During the interview, it became apparent that his city residence is in a short-term rental building on 8th Street, and that a family farm in the Mesick location had been mentioned. But thanks to our city clerk for verifying voter registration, so that issue has been resolved.
Great. Thank you for that input. Yeah, insight. I should meant to say sorry.
I was gonna mention that too, because that was brought up in our ad hoc related to this. 2 phenomenal candidates. Really tough decision. At the end of the day, we landed on one. Bradley was very impressive, and there was the concern in regard to his city resident status, and that was confirmed by our clerk. And just so happened to be driving down State Street at 8 o'clock in the morning, and he was at the corner of State and Railroad with his dog. Like, that's somebody that lives in town.
Community in action. Any other comments? Any public comment on this item? Seeing none. All right, we'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now this is, I feel like there should be a drum roll on this one. Our Complete Streets ad hoc. Commissioner Shaw, you were the chair of this, right? Oh,
I think Lance was.
oh, Lance was? Okay. Go ahead, Lance, and I just didn't know if you wanted to add a couple cents, because this has been such a thing.
Yeah, so as we all passed in December, the Complete Streets policy requires us appoint a Complete Streets Advisory Committee, which is a mostly citizen-led committee with one commissioner, that will be myself, and then either the city manager or their appointee. The first order of business, as we told every candidate, is to work to develop a rubric by which the city then can evaluate whether projects meet Complete Streets criteria. And we had a robust amount of interviews. It was 2 very long days, I would say. And so thank you, commissioners, for your time, because it was quite a bit of time that we spent. And then thank you to every single person who applied. If you aren't on this list, first of all, we're appointing the entire slot today, and as you'll notice that the times when people come off the advisory committee vary, and so there's going to be lots of opportunities in the next few years to join this committee. And so, with that being said, I move that that we appoint Noah Roth and Jason Whitaker for appointment to the terms expiring June 30th.
Can you go to the first page?
Is that not the first page?
No, that's it, isn't it?
Oh.
That's on.
No, that wasn't it.
You guys got to stop putting that in twice.
I move. We're going to work to change it to say recommended motion.
Thank you. Thank you. I move that Noah Roth and Jason Whitaker be appointed to the terms expiring June 30, 2029. Tim Werner and Dana Flugeft be appointed to terms expiring June 30, 2028, and Jill Sill be appointed to the term expiring June 30, 2027 on the Complete Streets Advisory Committee as recommended by the Ad Hoc Committee consisting of Mayor Pro Tem Ness, Commissioner Shaw, and Commissioner Bomer.
I'll support that.
Thank you both.
And I'd also like to invite all the amazing candidates that we had that we couldn't appoint to this board because we didn't have enough room to please come to the meetings and contribute, because their contributions are incredibly valuable, even though they're not appearing on the appointee list.
That's a really good point.
I would second that sentiment.
Mitch?
So after all the work we went through creating the Complete Streets Complete Streets process and establishing the advisory committee, and now going through interviews, thank you for your long hours. With that, do we have at least a tentative timeline for how soon they will be meeting?
I believe I requested that Rebecca send a doodle for a meeting time tomorrow.
Send it out tomorrow, not meet tomorrow.
Send it out
Sending out the
tomorrow, not
request
meeting tomorrow.
to find the meeting time tomorrow, so it's on our radar, we're working on it.
Appreciate all the enthusiasm from the ad hoc and the applicants on this, and the public at large. It's been a really good, I think, public process on that. Other comments or questions? Seeing none, any public comment on this? Do you want to come do a victory dance? Just kidding.
Justin Reed, President, 630 Cottage Drive, Apartment 1B. Even though I applied and I know I didn't show up for the interview, I actually completely forgot about the day of the interview. But I don't know if there's going to be other opportunities throughout the, it's not, if you get appointed, it's not like forever appointment. So I know that there's going to be other opportunities down the road, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Justin. Any other comment? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. I'm excited to see the work that's going to be done there.
Yeah.
And next, our other robust ad hoc is our Hickory Hills Advisory. So I'll hand that over to whoever wants to take that.
Yeah, I was the chair of that group along with, let's see, Commissioner Anderson participated and Commissioner Treadwell. We had 5 applicants for 3 open positions, including an incumbent. And honestly, any one of the candidates could have been placed in these positions. All of their resumes and their interviews were very impressive. It's a really important year for Hickory Hills. Lots of issues to be addressed, and we ended up selecting Andrew Farron, who has significant ski area management experience from Marquette Mountain, also local, has grown up here, and some engineering background. We also are recommending Rod Kivel, who's the head of the Hickory Hills Ski Patrol, who's the incumbent, and Kurt Neller, who is a parent of 2 young children that ski frequently. And Kurt also brings an impressive background in revenue management and business. So with that, I'll make the motion that Andrew Farron be appointed to the term expiring June 30th, 2029, seat previously held by Laura Ness, effective immediately, and Kurt Neller to be appointed to the term expiring June 30th, 2029, seat currently held by Andrew Weir, effective July 1st, 2026, and Rodney Kivel be appointed to term expiring June 30th, 2029, as recommended by the ad hoc committee consisting of Mayor Pro Tem Ness, Commissioner Anderson, and Commissioner Treadwell.
Support.
I will give that to Ms. Anderson. Thank you. Any further comment on this?
I somehow ended up on both of the Hickory Hills Advisory ad hocs. I'm glad that this one was a lot shorter than when we had to interview 24 candidates to fill the whole board. That took a while. But I am glad to hear that the Hickory Hills Advisory Committee, as it's been established, is working very smoothly, doing a good job of representing various user groups and demographics that enjoy Hickory, and I think that these appointments will help continue that legacy.
Thank you. Any other comments for this?
There were so many talented folks to choose from. It was a very difficult decision, but I'm confident that those that we're recommending are going to be excellent contributors.
Great job by you guys. I'm sure that was a very tough call to make on
It was
all
tough.
of those. Any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll bring it back. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And I think I've identified everybody. Well, first let me go through reports. Are there any reports from the boards? All right. The only thing I will add is that my last EDA meeting, the TIF plan that has been discussed, the ad hoc presented, there was some good feedback. So the projects and kind of outline are available from that meeting, and we have our joint meeting coming up next week, so that will all of that will probably be sent out to you ahead of that. But just if people want to look ahead of time, you can see it in the packet for that meeting. With that, we will move on to. Oh, go ahead, Ken.
I don't know, I just wanted to make a general comment.
Oh, we'll have that after our
That's at
public
the end,
comment.
okay,
Yeah,
yep.
no problem. We have public comment right now. We technically have a reserved public comment, but I don't see any faces that I don't recognize.
NMC.
Yeah, representing NMC that I recognize or don't
too late.
recognize.
Well,
So.
it's Daisy Brewer, but I don't think she's here.
No.
So.
So with that, I will then open general public comment. If Daisy does show up, we will give her allotted time. But if anybody has any general public comment.
Hi, my name is Jared. I'm a resident here, grew up here. 4703 Golden Eagle Circle is my address. I'm a part of NMC's social work program as well. I just wanted to say I really appreciate in the past couple of years all you've done for homelessness advocacy, affordable housing. It's genuinely making strides towards a better situation in our community, especially like QRT. I know you're pretty involved with that. And working at Munson, I see a lot of those processes being much more helpful, especially with patients who are homeless and need a discharge plan, and it has to be a safe discharge plan. So yeah, I really appreciate that. And hope that you continue that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the reserved public comment wasn't here, but we appreciate the comment from NMC Social Work anyways. Thank you.
This will be quick. I promise. Chief Teller, Fire Chief for the City of Traverse City. Just want to thank you for your support on the purchase of our new engine. Joel skipped out. I was hoping he'd be here, but I wanted to give a shout out to Joel Tapio, who's a garage superintendent. He's pretty amazing with how he boils down all of the data and came up with the scoring system and all that. That was all him. That was all him on his own. He did a real good job. And that is our fourth major purchase of apparatus since I've been chief, and we're still working on another one. But right now also too, public recognition to Captain Chris Jackson. He is with a couple of his team members tonight in Wisconsin, and tomorrow morning they're going to make the first of a couple of in-process manufacturing inspections on a replacement ladder truck. That's all built into the program, built into the price. It's no cost to the city because this particular unit was purchased with a grant. So I just wanted to recognize his efforts over the years and his team as well. So with that, I'll conclude. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Any other public comment right now? All right, seeing none, I'll bring it back to the commission. Ken, go ahead.
Oh, I just wanted to mention that in our study sessions, we've been talking about how we are going to communicate and work as a team. And I think one of the things that we haven't talked about yet is how we will respond when we deal with difficult and stressful situations. And we dealt with some contentious things tonight. And I think that how you respond after those type of situations says a lot about how you are going to move forward and continue to work in a positive direction or in a negative direction. And I feel like we disagreed on some things, but we had very respectful dialogue and we moved in a good direction. So I'm glad that we could. One of the things we've mentioned is that we can't have these conversations outside of public. So here we are while we're in public right now, and I wanted to bring that up and address that and just say thanks everyone for being respectful. Thank you everyone for respecting other people's opinions regardless of whether they were ones that we agreed with or not. And I'm excited to continue moving forward in a positive direction with all of you. So that's all I wanted to say. You can have the last word.
Oh, no, thank you, Ken. Oh, Heather's going to have the last word.
No, I'm not. Thank you, Ken. I really appreciated your comments, and I'm sure everybody did. So I have a question.
Yeah.
The CBDG item, there was no commission comment on that, and I have a whole bunch of questions.
So we're going to have each item brought to us, though, right?
Yes, and we have another public hearing coming on May 11th, but if you've got some questions in advance, if you can get those.
There just really wasn't much information in there, so I've got, definitely have some
Yeah,
questions.
please let me know what they are.
Send them to you?
Please
Okay,
do.
thank you.
Yes, anyone, all of you. Yes, thank you.
Any final? Okay, Mitch.
It pains me to say this is a Spartan, but go blue.
Any other?
What's the score?
I won't spoil it for anybody. I don't think we should in case somebody is going to flip over, but I know, we're not going to, but nobody wants to know the score even. They can flip over and see it. So what I was going to say on Ken's, in a more NCAA finals version of it, I would say, thank you, team. Great work tonight, team, and have a great night. Going to adjourn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My blood sugar's in that.
Yeah.